All right. Day 4, take 1. We're going to start with NetApp, or I guess the follow-up from yesterday's somewhat unfinished conversation.
So we don't have any follow-up from yesterday. Our assumption is Rajat is going to present replication. Is our understanding correct?
Yeah, I just added my topic. Okay, so the NetApp follow-up. I mean, there is a topic called NetApp follow. Okay, now it's stream. Okay, so should I start?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I have been looking into replication recently, and as much as I look into each vendor's implementation or how replication is interpreted by individual people, like I see a difference of opinion in like how this should work, how this is architected, is it meeting the customer requirements? So a lot of question arose when I was going through it. So I just added this topic to just get some vendor feedback regarding some of the questions I had regarding replication. So the first point is like to standardize this thing. So we have like documentation. I can see like there was one spec which was the original implementation for it. Then there was support for application 2.1, which is active, and there is another doc for enabling replication and some information about how to enable it, what kind of parameters we can pass. Recently, I added one doc, which is on line 275, which is related to replication on an OpenStack level. Like if I have a DR scenario where I want to move my workloads, like what should I do in case of disaster scenario? How do I make use of replication? So it is specific to RBD, since that's the open source driver we have. So I just used it, and it supports replication, of course. It's an asynchronous replication. But yeah, so there are steps for, I can even share maybe my screen. Yeah, so this is more of like an end-to-end documentation regarding replication. So yeah, basically this section covers like how to enable the R-bidding mirroring feature, which we call replication in Cinder. So there are docs for it, but the docs are pretty verbose. Like there are too many things to consider. So I just what do I say? Briefly describe the part which is relevant for Cinder. So once we are set up, so like the final verification is if I create a image in RBD, and then I enable the generaling and mirroring feature on top of it. Yeah, so this is the command. Once I enable it, I will see a similar volume on the destination side B. So yeah, next there are Cinder replication related steps. The main part of this documentation is like failover and failback scenarios for brute from volume and attached volume. So this is the whole procedure, how we should follow like failover in case of a boot from volume, where these are the main commands, shell 1 shell. And of course, we have the Cinder failover host command. So this is not related to active. This is just a single backend configuration at each site. So yeah, and then there is the failback scenario. Then there is the failover for external data volume. So basically, I tried to cover the end-to-end solution for replication here. But I still feel like there is not just RBD that supports replication, and async is not the only type. I mean, yesterday NetApp presented a lot of things related to replication active, and there are types in it. Similar for pure, they also support a bunch of things. So I was thinking of like more of like industry standards, like what we can categorize these types into, and how one can know more about it apart from looking at the code which I did. So that's not a very trivial way to know which backend supports what. And also the Cinder part of this is not very clear. Like we support a replication in active passive scenario, in active active scenario, but I don't think it is very clearly explicitly mentioned in places. And yeah, basically I found a greater knowledge gap where it is not easy to understand how replication works in case of Cinder or OpenStack. So this is the do's and don'ts. So we already have some like some operations where, like, I think we cannot create a multi-attach encrypted volume. I might be wrong, but yeah, I'm just trying to give an example of like some scenario where we restrict some of the operations for some of the things. So like in case of replicated volumes, can we create snapshots? Can we create clone volumes? Can we retype it? What happens if I fail over and on the destination volume we do some operation, like I create a bunch of snapshots on the after the failover. Now when I fail back, what happens? So all these scenarios are like very, I mean, I didn't find it covered anywhere, and it is also not very well documented. So this is something that the customer should be aware, like what benefit they get from replicated volumes, what are the demerits, what operations will work for them, what won't work for them. So this is kind of important that we should document this behavior somewhere. It makes it easier to make the choice to opt for it or not. And then there is the sender side of replication, then there is the vendor side of replication. So if Cinder allows certain type of replication, so Cinder just call the backend drivers mostly. It acts more as an interface between this. So whatever vendor driver performs, there might be cases where we end up in a state which is not desired. Now we should be separating these concerns. Like I have seen like people not understanding if it is a backend specific issue or a Cinder specific issue. I don't know how to achieve this easily, but yeah, at least the distinction should be made clear somewhere in a note or somewhere, that what Cinder performs in case of replication and what the vendor driver is supposed to perform. So those things also, like, I didn't find it highlighted. So yeah, these were like some of my observations that I wanted to present. Apart from that, like, so I had some questions. The first one being like the granularity. As I was saying, like I need more vendor feedback from this topic. So like in RBD, I can see like it is on a per image basis, which is a LUN or a volume in terms of Cinder. Or it is on a per pool basis, where the whole pool, any RBD image created on top of it will be replicated. So I was interested to know like what different kinds of granularity does other vendor drivers support, if you know.
Yeah, so the Hitachi one, we support, in addition, like consistency groups, basically. So we don't support like an entire pool, but we support individual volumes and we support consistency groups. The same idea as the snapshots, basically. It functions pretty much identically.
Okay, and consistency group uses the volume group API?
So at this moment, we don't support the consistency group inside of our Cinder driver. It's just that it's something our storage does support. So it like not in our driver currently, but could be added basically.
Okay, so if I want to, like, if I create volumes in a backend, they are automatically added as part of a consistency group?
No. In this case, it's like you would create a pair, like a replication pair that's across two remote devices, and at that point you could add it to a consistency group, and then the next time you create a pair, you could add it to that same consistency group. And in some cases, you can actually add an existing pair to a consistency group as well.
Okay, and how do I add it? Like, how can I issue a command where I would say add this pair of volume to this consistency group. Is it supported via Cinder or?
Oh, no. Currently just on our array. Yeah. We don't support
Okay.
it yet.
Yeah, I'm just talking in terms of Cinder, like how.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you wanted like vendor specific. Yeah. Sorry.
No. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I might be confused. Like, so initially, yeah, as you mentioned, like you support a consistency group based, but I was just curious to know after like how Cinder could leverage it, or is Cinder doesn't have any control over it? I was just trying to go into that.
Yeah, it's not in Cinder at the moment.
Okay. Okay. So it's purely based on consistency groups, and is there any volume type extra specifications that I need to, apart from the is replicated true?
No.
Okay, so it supports the native way Cinder does replication. Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Rajat, for NetApp, right? We have granularity from LUN to cluster. So based on the use case, we can have LUN level consistency. With the consistency group, we can add multiple LUNs to the consistency group. And this will give VM and application level consistency. Next is the FlexVol level. We can do the mirroring. And also SVM peering we can do. That is a SVM mirroring and active. Similarly at the cluster level.
Okay, so like NetApp supports at each layer, it supports a layer. Okay, that's good to know. And yeah, related to this, the second question was like what kind of replication is supported? As I understand, like synchronous, asynchronous are the main types, but I have seen like a trisync thing in Pure where they would replicate it to one synchronous and one asynchronous cluster. So that so just curious, like what kind of types of replication does are supported?
So
NetApp don't support that here. We support fan out and cascade. And in case of active, it should be 1-to-1. If it is a DR solution, we'll support fan out. The first site will be active, and the next, in case of cascade, right, first site should be active. Next follow-up sites can be DR solution.
Okay, I might have not got it very clearly. I'm not sure about the fan out, the cascade options.
Okay, so we have a primary site, and we can have a number of DR sites for the primary. That is async. In case of sync and active, it should be 1-to-1. There is no fan out there. And
so fan out is for async?
Yeah, only for async it is there for fan out. And we do support that scenario where first site can be protected as well as active sync. The pure case we were saying, right? That is supported in NetApp as well.
Okay, you mean one sync and one async?
Yeah.
Okay, what is it called?
There is no name. Let me check if I'll share.
Okay, so as I understand, like there are categories inside sync and async.
Yeah, there are category, multiple policies are there.
Okay. Yeah, surely we can explore this part. And maybe Anthony was saying
yeah. So I was just going to say we have sync, although I don't think we've implemented that into Cinder. We have async, which we do have in Cinder, but it's currently in the patch. And then we also have active, which is implemented in Cinder as a extra spec. And we also have the ability, what we call 3DC, which is the 3 different data centers. One from one data center to the second data center is active, and then from the first data center to the third data center is async, and that's basically a 3 data center solution. And that's not currently in our Cinder driver, but I think my my project manager is actually asking me about putting it in there, so it might be in there soonish.
What's the difference here between synchronous and active-active?
Basically with active, I think you can have it basically has virtualization involved so that you can have 2 data centers attached to the same LUN, and it falls over automatically in the event that like one of the data centers goes down. Basically that. So you're attached to both sides. Your volume's attached to both sides.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in terms of Cinder, when there is active configured, then we call a different method failover. And in normal scenario, we call failover host, just from code perspective, if you want to look. Okay, so this 3DC sounds like the tri-sync thing I was talking about in Pure. Is that correct? And
It probably. I don't know the pure solution, but probably if it's yeah.
it is one is like async and one is async. So that is
Yeah, it sounds similar. Yeah.
okay. Looks like it's a pretty popular option among customers. That's why it is, as Janand was saying, it is there in NetApp as well. Yeah, would be great to know more use cases around this. Yeah, and yeah, again, next question, like, I just wanted to know, like, if the failover and failback options are tested thoroughly in like normal deployment and active scenario. If there are any issues, known issues around that, maybe in failover, failback, or some cases that we know about.
So right now, with the Cinder NetApp driver, there is no automated failover and failback. And when there is a site went down, right? The LUN IDs at the destination site are different for sync and strict sync. Only in case of active, it is the same. And also, iGroup replication won't be there in case of sync and strict sync. This is a specific to NetApp scenario. So like what changes can be done at the Cinder layer so that this is smooth and automated?
Automated as in like user needs to call the failover commands, right?
Okay.
Like right now it's not there. That's what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, as I was saying yesterday, like we need to involve Nova in the discussion, because Nova, I mean, if we want to, yeah, let me think more about. So we are talking about just like if one site fails, are we talking about the VM workload failing, or is it like the storage failing?
Storage failing.
Okay. So if the storage fails, like we already have one solution. I think it's the active part, active synchronous replication, where we attach both the volumes and the paths are automatically shifted. So that at least I think works today.
Okay, that is yours. You are referring to Cinder active. That Cinder volume service is going to be active.
Yeah, in that scenario, so maybe I'm confusing things. So in Cinder active scenario, we do attach both the volumes to the host, right?
Yeah, that even I'm not clear, Rajat.
Okay, then we can explore.
If if it is attaching to the both the volume, both the hosts, right? It solves our use case.
Yeah, I think
Oh.
vendors are doing. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I'm kind of curious about the actual use cases we're talking about here, because in the case of this active-active replication mode, this is useful. I mean, so these volumes are attached to an instance, right? And in this scenario, when you're doing a recovery, the instance goes away and then you rebuild the instance and reattach the volumes to it, right?
No, I think both the volumes are attached to the VM, and whenever one site fails, then the paths to the other site becomes active. So one is
So we're talking about only the storage failing and not like the site failing.
yeah, we are talking about the storage cluster, like site A, I mean the storage cluster site failing, not the VM workload site.
Okay.
That is also one scenario where yesterday we were discussing about if the VM workloads fail, then Nova performs an evacuate. And at that point, wherever the instance is rebuilt, NetApp wanted the details of that host pre-populated so that it can decide which site to serve the request from, like which is in the closest proximity of it. So that is something we don't have today. But Nova does rebuild the instance, and it should be able to recover not recover, but yeah, it should be able. In that case, replication I think doesn't come into play at all, because it can create an attachment on the same storage cluster. Yeah, I'm not sure I was able to answer. Yeah.
Well, I just was trying to frame the whole thing because traditionally, the main use cases of what Cinder replication is for is around recovering from site failures. Recovering from a single storage system failing is a different thing.
But couldn't that be considered a site failure of its own when you have like a remote data center? And so in this case, in the active, you would have two remote data centers, or one local and one remote. So if your remote connections failed, for example, it would use one data center. You lost connection to one data center. You picked up that connection from the other data center. So it's not like the individual storage unit like caught on fire or something. It's more you've got connection issues to wherever remote location you're dealing with.
Right, but you're saying in that situation you're losing connectivity to the storage, but the instance is still up and running.
Yeah, you're losing to one connection to one of the storage. However that connection was made, or however you lost it. You know, maybe the storage did die, or maybe there's maybe the network on that side, or on to that storage is down or something, or the power's out at that data center. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's just that when that one side goes down, the other side's going to pick it up. And then in the case of like for our storage implementation, just Hitachi specific, we have a quorum disk, so it'll figure itself all out once it's back once it's back together, so to speak.
Yeah.
Also, I was curious to know, like, what do we consider a site here? Is it like the combination of like the VM workloads plus the storage array in one particular geographical region? Is that considered a site?
Yeah, in this case, a site would be wherever the storage is. So, like, if you had basically two different data centers in this case, would be the most likely scenario, I would think.
Okay, yeah.
Rajat, we have similar scenario yesterday we presented. I can share those slides so that we can discuss with context. Okay.
Yeah, it would be great if we have that on screen. Like it makes it easier to visualize.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So this is the first scenario where node is going down. I think we are discussing this scenario where we have two sites, site A and site B. And if the storage goes down or connectivity to cluster 1 here goes down, there should be a continuous connectivity. It may be non-optimal, but should be there from the storage side.
Yeah. I think Eric was more concerned if both these things fail. Was that your concern, Eric? Like if
Yeah, the entire data center goes down, right? The backup data center is going to come as a backup.
Yeah, I think if both data centers are down, you're going to be done for. If that's what you were suggesting, Rajat.
in that case, I also don't know like what would be the recovery procedure. In this diagram, I mean, we are assuming like node 2 already knows about the second cluster, but unless we do the failover host from the sender side, we don't change the primary to secondary, like the credentials and everything. So yeah, in this scenario, we can do the sender failover command, and then when Nova evacuate, but the evacuation is like automatic. So we don't know when it happens. Like it should happen automatically. So we will fail.
Yeah.
Anyways, there is some synchronization between these two events, like the VM migrate and failover host. Maybe the VM evacuate should trigger the failover commands, something like that.
So Rajat, Cinder active, is it going to support this scenario right now?
This one I think should be supported. Some of the vendor drivers have. I mean, I'm just speaking from the code perspective. I haven't done this kind of testing. I don't have like active. I haven't tested this, but yeah, it should work.
It should work. Okay.
Because if you connect again, like I have another questions regarding this scenario as well, because this seems to be supported from code perspective, but I was more curious, like if this was thoroughly tested. So yeah, so firstly, if we can finish with this, like, so I think the failover and failback commands are at least tested, right? Like in NetApp and as well as Hitachi. That, I mean, there are issues, of course, but yeah. Sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say they were probably tested by the prior group because it was their patch. But yeah, I probably should just not say anything.
Okay, and right now it's like async support you mentioned, or is it still under review?
It's still under review. I think
Okay.
it actually has a +2 on it right now.
Okay. Okay, and I think active we can think more about it. Like, what does this mean exactly? Because I have one understanding, but it might be wrong. So, yeah. And so, I mean, of course, like the customers might be asking for like 0 RPO and 0 RTO type of scenarios. Like I don't want any downtime or even like data loss. So are there any specific things we are doing in Cinder drivers that achieve this?
It is there from NetApp driver, not at the core level right now. And this is also partial project. And failover and failback is also manual right now.
Yeah.
So what do we mean when we say they're supporting 0 RPO and RTO? So 0 RPO is going to require synchronous replication to exist at all.
And zero RTO is like when the storage side goes down, I should automatically have connectivity to the secondary storage without downtime.
So, okay, so that makes sense in the scenario of the instance did not go down at all.
Yeah. There might be some delay, but yeah, it shouldn't affect the workloads. Like maybe I'm executing a command which fails, but again, like if I execute it again, it should work. Like few seconds should be considerable. So I think we need more discussion on this part as well, like because I can see this serves as the main use case for replication. Like if we have to go through downtime, then there are various ways to like. People have been recovering from snapshots and even backups, so that is always a solution. Recover workloads, but they don't offer zero downtime. Like both RTO and RPO are not guaranteed in that case. So at least replication should be one better than comparatively. That's my understanding. Okay. And yeah, coming to the concerns I have. So as I was saying, like Pure and Infinidat are the two backends that I've seen doing this attachment of like both the primary and secondary volume to the host. Now it is like it is expected behavior that when one side goes down, the another path gets active, and we are like still serving the request to the machine. But what happens if we perform some other operation? Like, so right now we haven't done like the Cinder failover host from the Cinder side. Okay, so we haven't executed that command. So the Cinder backend still thinks it is still pointing to the first storage cluster. On the Nova side, it has switched to the other path, but Cinder still thinks it's able to, like, it is still, the first storage side is still active and it is using that. Now, if I try to detach a volume, that volume, I am expecting the operation to fail because the unmapping request will go to the first cluster. If I'm able to explain myself correctly.
Rajat, in case of sync, right, both the primary and secondary are read-write volumes and both are attached.
Yeah.
In that case, right, even if we do the detach, once the primary comes back, it knows the metadata of the secondary side. So it's in sync, right? So it assumes that based on the metadata, it's already detached. So primary also in the same state as the secondary once it comes back.
But once it comes back, like right now, I'm talking about a case where the first cluster goes down,
Mm-hmm.
and the second cluster is active, but serving the request to the VM.
Mm.
And now, if I issue a detach, I haven't done the Cinder failover host or Cinder failover. I'm just doing a detach now. So Cinder driver still points to the first cluster at this point, but the IO is being served from the second cluster. So somehow the unmapping request, from my perspective, my understanding is it should go to the second cluster because that is active, that is able to serve the request. But from Cinder vendor perspective, it is still pointing to the first cluster. So it will send the request there and it should fail.
My understanding is it is connected to both the clusters.
But unless we do, so if I So you're saying like if I issue a detach command, it should go to both the clusters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that too.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe my understanding here is different. So I will just note this point down.
I have the same confusion as Rajat. So one of the clusters is down though, right? And that's the one that Cinder knows about. And that's the one it would send the detach to, right? Because it's not on the multipath, right? That's the data path. We're talking the control path.
Yeah, but aren't we just telling the Cinder driver, not the storage itself? You're telling the Cinder driver, and then the Cinder driver knows what to do from there based on whichever storage it's understand. Like, so when I get a detach, if I'm in a replication pair, I just detach both sides, basically. Like in my when in my active implementation. Like you get detached, just detach both sides because it's basically, I mean, you're taking the VM down at that point. And then if we issue another attach command to it, then we'll attach both sides again.
So you're saying as long as so Cinder will just tell the driver that we're detaching, and then the driver will know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And driver is like sending the detach to both the sides. One first might fail, but the second one will succeed. So I think that's how the implementation is done. I mean, at least from vendor perspective. Okay, and yeah, I think the next concern I had regarding live migration also would be fine, because again, the detaching and attaching to the second, like the another compute, the request will go to both. One will succeed, but it will be able to serve the IO request. So do we handle cases where, like, if I'm live migrating an instance and one cluster is down, so the one of the commands to map the LUN will fail? So is that handled correctly?
Yeah, Rajat, it should be handled correctly. So if the state is, there is a mediator, in active, it knows that one of the site is down. If it is moved to in live migration scenario, if you are telling it's going to be attached to the second site, right? There are different flavors for it. In case of active, it's already attached to second site as well. And if there is a detachment, when the primary comes back, it syncs the metadata also, and it reflects the second site state.
Okay. So from what I can understand, like the synchronous replication is like our, what do we call it? Like foolproof replication, like what the one the customer expects. Like everything is seamless in that scenario.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm able to gather. And this failover host, these commands are mostly in terms of asynchronous replication, where we do want to instruct, like the VM is not connected to both the sides, and we do want to instruct, like, okay, the first site has gone down, now let's connect to the second one. So I think they are designed for mostly async scenarios.
Yes.
Or maybe non-active, I can say. Again, we will discuss like what active means. Like,
there are multiple flavors of active. At least in terms of NetApp, one is a sync, another is a strict sync, and the third one is pure active. In case of sync, right, it can tolerate acknowledgement of write to the both sides. It can tolerate some like even the secondary site is not available. The primary will acknowledge to the any writes saying that it's done. In case of strict, even the secondary needs to acknowledge saying that write is already there, and both are in strict sync. In active, it is a like even if there is a disaster to the first site, it will the failover failback is transparent, and secondary will keep taking the workloads, and there is no disruption. In that, it is a zero RPO and RTO solution. If it is a sync and strict sync, RTO can be 5 seconds or 10 seconds, depends on the SLO, but RPO is 0. This is the flavors from NetApp, and I am not sure about other ones. All three flavors fall under strict sync and activate.
Okay. Yeah. Have you pasted the link anywhere?
Link, 1 second, I can share.
Yeah, mainly I just want to know like in which documentation. Is it a NetApp specific documentation where it is?
Yeah, 1 second.
In the meantime, I wanted to ask Fran as well. Like, so we have like vendor specific documentation as well, right? In OpenStack, where there is a page for each vendor. Okay. Yeah. Then
Yeah, I think it might even be by driver. So like Dell has like 5 individual pages.
okay.
I can give you a link.
Yeah, then this type of information should definitely go there. Right now, I'm assuming might not be, but yeah, I will check the link shared by Brian.
So the place I always go for the driver stuff is this all about drivers, because there's a link right on the cinder.openstack.org. And then if you scroll to the bottom, there's a link to the matrix and the available drivers. I'm not sure what that is. I think that's just the list of drivers that are available. And then the last link on the page will give you the list of all the driver documentation. And then those are the ones that use, I'm not sure who wrote the macro, Sean or somebody. I think it pulls from the driver configuration to populate a table. So you get a list of all the options and parameters.
It does that, yeah. I know this because I've had to update our documentation.
Anthony, who do you work for?
Tachi Pintar.
Okay. I was thinking
Hitachi
you
also like
work for Dell. So,
Gotcha. Whatever.
Hitachi also has different teams, right? Like Manta is different and the HSBD is different.
No, actually, so HSBD was with Japan, and they gave it to us. So my team took it over, I think around May. So yeah, we did like a whole knowledge transfer at the beginning of the year and stuff like that. And of course, I'm still learning because this thing is gigantic. But yeah.
Yeah, I had some HSBD specific points as well. That's why I wanted to know. But yeah, Janan leave the meeting. Yeah, so Janan, thanks for sharing the links. I was trying to search the documentation shared by Brian. I was trying to search like sync and that, and I don't see any occurrences, which means like this pure sync and strict sync, all these are not mentioned.
1 second, Rajat. Then, okay, you are looking from Cinder perspective, right?
Yeah, so this
Okay,
one.
1 second. Let me, yeah, I'll share that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how this is like a GitHub docs thing.
Yeah, it's a GitHub doc.
So, whom do we share this information with? Like, is it for the customers to see?
Yeah,
Or
this is for customers.
okay. Okay. Yeah, good to know that we have this information. I was just again we can decide like what would be the right place, but I was hoping like if we could include it in the OpenStack documentation as well, because it's not trivial to locate this one.
Yeah, Jan, would it be okay if we put those links in the Etherpad? Because after we hang up,
Sure, Brian, I will update. You can also do it.
okay. I was going to put it with them.
Yeah, thanks, Pam, for putting those links. I was thinking like just keep them open and read it at some point.
I try that, but then every so often I have to restart my system. Then I lose like 100 pages.
Yeah. Okay, it's good to know. And same for Hitachi, I assume, like we might not have like the OpenStack documentation for application, but there might be something somewhere.
So it's not on the main page because our patch is in review, but it actually is updated in the patch. Like if you were to run HTML.
Oh, good. Okay.
So this is the Hitachi VSP B20 something.
Yeah, so
Right?
that B20 patch is our like I'm under threat right now for that patch. Big time. A lot of execs involved and stuff like that because they don't really understand that it's not a free for all. You can't just get stuff merged just because you want to. But yeah, that
Yeah.
patch something we definitely need to get merged ASAP though.
Yeah, I started that review and somehow like I might have, but yeah, it's definitely on my priority list.
Cool.
So Anthony, you know about the driver review checklist?
I probably not if I'm answering this way.
Yeah, no, it's in. Okay, let me point it out to you because it's something you can sort of do yourself to so you can sort of anticipate. I can't talk and type at the same time. So you can anticipate problems and fix them before you get reviewed. I'm not looking for OpenStack. I want Cinder.
We have done actually a lot of different things and replied to reviews and stuff already. I think the only thing we don't have going right now is our CI name doesn't match what's like, and we can't figure that out. Like I went and like we have a new CI account, right? So I went and changed the CI wiki name in a test place, and it still didn't update. And like we looked at the third-party systems page, like as far as I know, everything is well in the B20 patch. The wiki name is still incorrect because I didn't want to do another patch set without it working. But
Right.
yeah, but as far as we know, everything's correct. Like we have an account, it's listed in the third-party systems. We have the CI wiki name correct, and it still doesn't show up. But other than that, we do have our CI automated and it's running. And when we first submitted our patch, it wasn't it wasn't fully there yet.
So when you say it's not showing up, where is it not showing up?
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, one sec. So if you look at the Zool summary, it doesn't show up in the Zool summary. Like you see, Zool's there obviously, and then you'll see like the HPE Nimble Storage CI, Store Pull OpenStack CI, HPE Storage CI, et cetera, et cetera. Our logs show up at the bottom as a comment, like just like the other CIs, but they don't show up in the Zool summary.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. You could ask in maybe either OpenStack Infra channel on
Okay.
IRC or OpenDev, because there's probably. I'd start with OpenStack Infra and see who's there. But Fungi, who's Jeremy Stanley, would probably know, or at least could point you what to look at, because it's really weird. Everything's got to be exactly right in like three different places, or else it doesn't work. Or it could be you hit a bug, so you never know.
So we think our 3 places are correct, but I obviously,
Or it's always good to ask other vendors as well. Like maybe Janand is here, like they would have gone into like faced similar issues and spend hours.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember somebody. This happened like a year ago or so. Somebody was having trouble, but I don't remember how it got resolved. I don't remember who it was either.
Okay, so yeah, I think at least like this part is clear to me, like how this active case works, replication, and it is something that is and meets the customer demands. Now I had this, I wouldn't say complaint, but a concern from the Hitachi SSBD driver. So I found out like they don't use the standard way how Cinder configures replication. So we have the replication device configuration to enable it, but Hitachi uses this Hitachi mirror storage ID, which if set enables this GAD.
Yes, that's the active implementation, and that's actually been in the code for a while. So our async implementation uses replication device, and that's the one that we have a patch for that one as well. I think that one's actually has a +2 on it right now. So you could see our replication implementation. Let's see, patch 869991. And this one was implemented by the prior team. I mean, you can see the first patch set was 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the approvers, but at that point I didn't notice like we are going. I mean, as you're saying, like it is like the active case, so it might not. I mean, concern with the operations that I was talking about, like maybe we don't need to do failover host because the requests are automatically sent to all the storage arrays in picture. But at the same time, I think, okay, let's see what we can do about the active case. But I still think it should use the standard configuration provided by Cinder, because if from Cinder perspective we tell anyone to enable replication, this is the only way. Now Hitachi can custom suggest this, but people might not know. Like from Cinder interface, this is the only option we have to enable replication, the replication device.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I think for this one, I don't know if this GAD. I mean, this GAD support's already it's already been merged a long time ago. I don't know if it was even in there before replication support was in there. I'm not sure on that. It's not clear to me. But because I don't know the full timeline. But I mean, in terms of Cinder replication support, I don't know how long that's been in there. But so I do have a question. Like in the 3DC scenario, in that specific case, if we were to do something like that, we would have to have replication device and our special GAD config. So in some sort of scenario like that, you'd have to enable if we switched our patch over, like in a future patch, to using replication device, also for active, in that case, you'd have to have 2 entries in your backend, because there'd suddenly be 3 different.
Yeah, so in the replication device, you can have as many entries as you want.
Okay.
And-
Okay. All right. Oh, all right. Well, that works then.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, this scenario, like it might become more and more complex again. Like for one scenario, async, you're supporting the replication device, but for the sync case, there is another option. Now, if you're talking about 3DC case, like how will it work? So that again will cause complications, as you said. So yeah, maybe at that time it would be great to switch, like maybe deprecate the current config option and just use the new one, like the Cinder one.
Yeah. It might be worth doing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, the whole point of this discussion is like these things are not very standardized, and we haven't documented all the impacts, all the limitations, and everything about it. So it would be good to have more discussions around replication and at least have something prepared so that everyone knows, like it should be common, it should become common knowledge, like what is supported, what is not, how all of this works. Right now that is missing.
So one thing I thought of, since you're bringing up just general stuff in the replication arena, is similarly to the snapshots, you're going to have a whole fiasco with resizing as well.
So if I extend a volume, does the replica also get extended?
So right now in our implementation, I can't answer that question. I think it's now possible. Back when that patch was written, I don't think our storage could do that. So for our replication case, it probably doesn't. But I would think that if in the case where that kind of feature can be enabled, yeah, you would want to resize both sides for sure.
Yeah, again, yeah, this is the same thing I wanted to highlight. Like these kind of limitations should be known, at least if they are on the vendor side or on the sender side. It should be well documented somewhere. My testing has been solely based on the RBD, which is async supported RBD mirroring. And I have seen so I was testing out with the snapshots. Like if I create a snapshot of the primary site and if I fail over, does the snapshot exist on the secondary side? And it does. I was able to manage the volume. Then I was able to manage the snapshot, and it worked as it is on the secondary side. And then I was able to do the failback. And yeah, so with snapshots, RBD does support this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting case for sure. And you mentioned this earlier, is what do you do when you failed over and then the snapshot's requested? That's an even I don't even know if that case can be handled truly. Because when you fail back, the whole point of the failover is you failed over because one side had disaster. So you can't really, I guess that it would almost have to be some sort of storage enabled feature, I would think. Maybe I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking of the point in time where at the secondary site, you've gone far past where you were at the primary site, and you have this snapshot. You can't go back on the primary site and take that snapshot at the exact same point. So it almost seems to me like you'd have to have some sort of storage feature where the snapshot itself could be transferred over to the primary. I don't know.
Yeah, I think in case of RBD, there is a very strong linking. Like the snapshot resides in the tree of the main volume, which is the image on the RBD side.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, I think that's the key distinction here. But yeah, as you said, if we create a learn out of it, or like anyway, like the snapshotting is done on the backend side. If it is an independent entity from the main volume, then yeah, it would become tricky. Like we might need some custom handling or like some storage support, as you said, to do these kind of things. But yeah, and yeah, similar was the case with volume clones. Like if I create a clone of a volume and I failover, then the parent dependency is still maintained on the secondary side. So that was also an interesting case. But yeah, I can't, I mean, again, I can't go like, or anyone can go like testing each of the operations like one by one to see what are the limitations. But yeah, certainly with the follow-up discussions, we can have at least a good list of main operations that we support or not. That I'm hoping for.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was all what I wanted to discuss around replication. Thanks a lot for this feedback. It is really helpful, Anthony and Jayanand.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Welcome.
I'm glad I was here for this one. I finally can contribute something.
Yeah, and I will make sure like to take a look at that patch. It's in my list, but yeah, somehow I got involved in some other priorities. But yeah, I will take a look.
Thank you.
If we have a few more minutes, I had a question for Jan. Could you share the day zero slide?
One second.
Oh, sure.
Brian, yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, could you share the day zero slide of your the NetApp configuration? I'm just kind of curious about how something works.
Yeah, let me first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian, yeah. Can you see my screen?
I can. Thank you. Okay, so the question I've got, and this might be a dumb question because
it's all black for me.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I can't see your slide or whatever you're presenting. It's just all black for me.
I wonder.
I'm able to see it somehow.
Yeah, what browser are you using? Well,
I'm using Brave. If it's just me, then that's fine. Go right ahead.
All right, I'll try to describe what it says. So you've got the two storage clusters, and then in a different box, you've got the compute nodes that house a VM. And so the VM has a connection to the primary storage cluster, but it also has a connection to the replication, to the replica cluster.
Yes.
And the idea was that what's happening is with multipath, you can specify them both as paths.
Yes.
And the proximity is what's going to make the primary path be the one that's used.
Yes, Brian.
So my question is just with the so the proximity, I believe, is determined in terms of like response time or something. So if you suddenly had like network congestion on AO, which is the connection to the primary, then right, the hypervisor might switch over to using, or the multipath daemon might switch over to using that other path.
Yes.
So my question is just, you're showing the replication going one direction. I guess, is that just because of the chart?
No, that is a representation problem.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
It is in case of ActiveSync, it is bidirectional.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So because you never really know exactly what might be happening. from
Yes.
the hypervisor and the network congestion. Okay, that was
This is active.
gotcha. All right, great. That was I should have noticed that other error. Okay,
This is
that's
error
a
from
really clever way to use multipath, I must say, to do this.
Yeah, true, Brian. Yes.
So, all right, great. Thanks.
If you here it is clear. I don't know if it is, but yeah. Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Yeah,
And is that for only iSCSI based volumes, or does this also work for NFS?
Only for iSCSI, FC, and NVMe right now.
So for NVMe, we have like the native multipathing. Does
Yeah,
that?
native multipathing is there. Yes.
Yeah. So it works the same way, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's great.
And there's no equivalent for NFS?
Not sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
I
sure.
know multipathing is not used for NFS. I was just wondering if there was an equivalent solution for NFS based exports.
From NetApp side, I need to go back and check. I don't have answer. It's a shared file system, right? I suspect it should be from the host side. Redundancy through virtual IP or something we have to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I have seen like multi-attach scenarios for NFS where there is an NFS volume we create which acts as a share for multiple VMs. But I haven't heard of like the multi-pathing scenario where we need multiple paths to the same NFS share. I mean, it makes sense for redundancy and performance, but yeah, I haven't heard it just. So Janand, I remember you mentioning like the learn ID is different in sync and strict sync for the primary and secondary.
LUN ID is different for strict sync and sync. In case of active sync, it is same.
Okay, and learn ID, we are talking about the SCSI WWN.
WWS.
So that won't be able to leverage this.
Yeah, we need to manual failover and failback we have to do.
Okay. So,
Even iGroup replication won't be there. In case of active sync, we have iGroup replication.
okay, I'm not sure what iGroup thing, but yeah. Yeah, very interesting details. So should we move to, I don't know if we have other topics or
I'm looking now. We may not have any other topics. This may just be free review time.
All right, so I reformulated the dashboard for driver patches, and
Thank you, sir.
no matter what I did to try to make it look manageable, we just had too many freaking reviews.
Oh my goodness, this is a lot. All right.
So I tried to.
Whoa.
So all right, so let me just say something for people who haven't used this dashboard before. So this is like our festival of reviews dashboard, except focused on the driver patches. So to make things kind of useful,
Just for reference, this is a line 264 of the Etherpad for the PTG.
yeah, and I just pasted it in the chat too.
Okay.
This is a useful link to just like save, right? It'll always work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, always is a kind of long time,
Well, yeah.
but at least for the next few weeks.
If one data center goes down, it'll still work.
Yeah, possibly. All right, so with the festival, so I forget how I came up with the number of 55 lines, but I remember Simon was upset that the small patches were too small, and so his patches weren't getting reviewed or something. This was a while back. So just you have to scroll down to see the bigger ones. But they're there also. But the thing I wanted to point out was what I've got is this filters out anything that's an merge conflict, anything that's already got a -1 or -2 on the review. Any of the ones that you personally have reviewed already should not show up here. And then also if your patches won't show up in the in your list because of the dashboard query. So
Dude, by the way.
So yeah, so what I wanted, so I'm just pointing that out because sometimes people get freaked out because they open this up and none of their patches are there. It's just they're there for everybody else. They're just not there for you. And you don't have to use this dashboard if you don't find it helpful. When it's smaller, it is kind of helpful because you can cruise through things kind of quick. But anyway, I guess let's review some stuff. It's a lot of patches. And just so you know, the default ordering is most recent. It's not the most recent patch shows up at top, but the most recent review that's been modified in some way, which could be somebody leaving a comment, one of the CIs leaving a comment, anything like that.
Well, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. Can you paste the PTG URL in IRC? I'm
Sure.
trying to find the link to what you guys are talking about. Sorry.
On it.
Thank you.
Brian, what happens if we set review priority? Is that respected or is that?
No, so with the I never did figure this. So review priority doesn't act like a normal label. Its behavior changed when Gerrit got updated like 2 years ago. And somebody can devote some brain power to this. I'm trying to remember what the issue is. So it shows up because of the kind of thing it is. I forget. I forget what the deal is, but it shows up as a green check, even for nothing, because as a requirement, it's been satisfied, I think is what the idea is. So it's basically useless. that wasn't a clear explanation, but that's why there's a check for everything. So even if you change it in Garrett, I think it'll still show up as a check.
Do we have any mechanism, like if we're like, say hypothetically, we decide to do like some kind of mini sprint between weekly meetings, like, is there any way to flag a subset of patches for that? Like,
I think
don't
we could do, I didn't have time to experiment with the hashtag thing, but that's probably the best thing. Sean used to have like a Cinder priorities dashboard, and I'm not sure how he selected stuff to go in there.
is that the one that's in the IRC topic? I was looking at that yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know who controls the, I guess so the tiny CC link is like, that name is something you have under your tiny CC account. Is that how that works? Like,
yeah, except the Cinder priorities, I think, is Sean's.
okay, so we'd have to go to Sean to have him, or just duplicate it and call it something else.
Yeah. So how did he? Guess I'll have to try. Let me grab the URL and see if I can figure out what he's screwing on. All right, so that actually is using the so yeah, I guess what I need to do. So yeah, so he is using the priority changes label. So we could
integrate that into this filter without like,
yeah, I mean, the really easy thing to do is so the way this dashboard thing works is you have a for each where you put a whole bunch of constraints in, and then you can have dashboards that add other constraints to that. So the easiest thing would be if we add the priority to the main thing. That's going to filter. I bet that'll filter out everything. Give me a sec here. All right, so Google messes this up. All right, so don't use the link I just pasted into Gmeet because that won't work. Where's the Etherpad? I've got it somewhere. Okay, so way at the bottom of the Etherpad. If you take that link, you'll see nothing. I mean, you'll get that dashboard. But if you start putting +2s for the review priority, I think things will start showing up in there.
Brian, can you check the wrapping on that? It looks like, I don't know, there's a trailing piece that didn't make it into the clickable URL.
Yeah, don't just, take it out of the Etherpad.
Okay.
Yeah, Google Chat messes up long URLs. So it's way at the bottom of the Etherpad, last line.
Still yields nothing for me. I'm sure I'm doing it wrong.
Oh, because what I'm seeing is I'm seeing this.
That's what I see. Oh, all right. That's
because we don't have any priorities assigned to the reviews. So if you look at the tiny CC one.
All right. How do I? So is this a general review priority? Like, can I toggle this and have things show up in that list now?
Yeah. So if you go here, let me. All right. So this was the original one that has just way too much shit in it. So let's grab here's Hitachi. Okay, so that's kind of a small thing. All right, anyway, so we got this. So if we add review priority, now I made it 2. So now if we refresh, okay, that doesn't. All right.
I see it. Yeah, that seems to work. Or no?
Yeah, I can't. It's not showing up in that other.
It does for me.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, so why would? Oh, because I'm on here as a reviewer. Oh, this is really bad.
Oh, not reviewed by me. So if you've reviewed it,
so but I haven't. So I only reviewed it in the sense that I
added the +2.
I added the review priority. I didn't actually review it, and it can't tell the difference. Oh man! All right, so we got to. All right. Well, we can decide what's better, whether
Maybe
it's better.
make like an admin account that's specifically for setting the review priority.
God.
Right. Oh, okay.
Can we take away the reviewed by me then?
Yeah. And I guess that's fine. I mean, let me see.
That does mean, though, with these dashboards as they're structured, if anyone puts a -1 on anything, even if you disagree, it is going to prevent it from hitting the radar of everyone else.
Right. So we can make. I mean, so basically, what this is. Let me show people. All right. So we've got a. Looking. Okay, so if we do the search like this, so if you do project OpenStack, /Cinder.
I think you got a typo the word project.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that would not work. Okay, thank you. All right, and then you can give it the directory. So Cinder, whoops. You have to spell stuff correctly though. Volume drivers. And you can be even more specific if you want. And then status open. That will give you any patch that touches that directory, which would be the drivers. So it depends on, so what I'm trying to say is the usefulness of the dashboards depends on what you want to do. So like for when we're having like the reviews like this, I think it's good to like not see the ones you've already reviewed because you want to concentrate on the things you haven't seen yet. But in general, if you want to just keep an eye on what's happening with the drivers, you can do something like I just showed you. And I mean, so you can also do like drivers, like /NetApp. Right. And then that narrows it down even more. Or, and you can even do, I don't know if people are aware of this, you can do file : and so you can look for a particular, only reviews that hit a particular file. So anyway, it's just, if you just want to see what's going on with all the drivers, that's the easiest way to do it, is just dir : Cinder volume drivers. I'm not sure if
I'm afraid to look at the set that is.
give it a try. I don't know if that's restricted or not. Now that I'm pretty sure I can change. We can change with the Garrett ACLs if anybody can do that. Okay, Rashad thinks only the cores can. We may have already anticipated that. Yeah, so actually, so somebody who's not a core, see if you can set the review priority on one of these patches, just so we know.
How did you set it again?
Oh, it's let me show you.
I started doing a review, so I didn't.
Okay.
If you drop a link to one, I'll try to set it, since obviously I don't have any permissions. I can be a guinea pig.
Okay, here we go. Try this one. All right, so this is in the chat in the meet. So if you just go to, you
Yep.
can see, okay, you see where it is. Yeah, see if you can.
How do you change it though?
Oh, good question.
Oh,
You
you
go
go.
to reply,
So,
like if
yeah.
you do your review, you should get a field there that says.
Yeah, I don't have it.
Yeah, I just can do code review
Like
-1, 0, and +1. That's it.
Yeah, so for me it says review priority. It says the words there, but there's no thing. All I can do is submit the conditions. Or actually, I can't even change the conditions. I can just look at
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
Rajat's right then.
You have to be core to do this then,
Okay.
because I see it. I see code review, review priority, and workflow.
So
Okay.
I'll tell you another thing. Maybe it's helpful that at least for ironic cores that we've added, is that there's a hashtag that anybody can edit, and I think it's like hashtag ironic review prio or something like that, and anybody can put something there, and so like that's what other people that want to get that into the core's view will throw something on there. And so
get
like
that patch, right?
sorry, say that again.
So you get that for literally every patch, right?
No, people have actually been pretty good, and like I try to like Fridays, I always go through and either kick stuff out of there or give it. So I'm on an ironic core, and I will give it a review priority, right? Because we have the same permission that only cores can do the review priority, and so like that's kind of how we move stuff, at least into the different dashboards, same as you.
Well, that would be good, because I think that would be better than the list that's dumped in the Etherpad every week.
Yeah, that's definitely better, because right now the way that we come to know that someone needs a review is the pingings and the IRCs, the direct messages, and then the Etherpads, and it's like a fire hose of things, and it's hard to keep up with. Like,
and that was exactly what we were trying to figure out a way, right? And so right there, if you see under strategy towards the upper left, there's that hashtag, and we are using like ironic weekly prior. I forget exactly what it is. It's auto completes for me, but we let anybody, like I said, anybody can kind of do that, and that's just a request for the cores to be aware of those changes.
Okay. So the cores can actually set review priority proper, and then
Correct.
everyone can set the hash, and we can sort of promote between the hashtag and the review priority as needed, and it gives us sort of a programmatic way of handling this instead of like.
Exactly.
Okay, I propose we adopt something like this in the next meeting. This is definitely better.
We were doing just like you guys had. We had like an Etherpad or like here's links in IRC. Oh no, I forgot about one, right? Like so. I don't know who came up with that. Not me. People that manage people or projects.
Hashtag, okay.
Brian, I put a link there just for what you were talking about a few minutes ago with the dashboard. Basically, if you replace not reviewed by me with this search like I did that looks for not label code review from self, it'll actually do what you want.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it's changed the reviewed by me to
Okay, to this thing.
I did not put a code review label on it.
Okay.
Say that again. I missed that first part.
Because the issue was whatever I was using to detect that somebody had reviewed a patch wasn't specific enough. So Eric found, so when I put the priority, that made Garrett eliminate that patch. But Eric's found a way.
So you can search to say there was not a code review label applied by self, which is what Brian actually wanted that search to do.
Right. Jeez. Okay.
Can we capture this in another tiny.cc thing? Just I'm gonna.
Well, I'll
just
revise.
Live
What?
every single time I'm trying to
I
deal with it.
was thinking Brian wanted to maybe edit his dashboard to do it that way, and then it would
Yeah,
actually work.
well, I can update it. All right. So. Jeez. All right. Well, I'll have to mess with it. I did something wrong. All right. So what we want is, so basically that dashboard we looked at earlier, except only show the high priority stuff, at least for now. So then John or somebody, you need to just make some of those reviews high priority.
So I just wanted to add my thoughts on the review priority thing.
Okay.
So when we talk about a particular review being on priority, from my perspective, we are talking about the milestone we are in. Like every patch proposed by a contributor is high priority for them. I mean, for them, for their organization. But from the community perspective, we are focusing on the milestones. Like if it is milestone 2, then driver patches are like high priority. That's my understanding.
Well, I think, okay. So yeah, we may be confusing like a bunch of things here. So one thing we want is just, so we've decided to do the festival reviews every 2 weeks. We're going to focus on drivers to try to clean those out. And then when we look at the list of how many driver patches there are, there's just a shitload. So we want to narrow it down. So one way would be to set the priority, like using that priority thing. But then you're right, that's usually meant for other purposes.
Yeah, I just wanted
Or we
even
could say we just wanted, so, because what we could do is just, like John or somebody, on Thursday could just go through and make sure there's 10 or 15 patches that are ready for review for people to look at.
So, Raja, like what you're saying, like in an ideal world, this would work perfectly. Like we would focus on the priority for a particular milestone, burn that down and then start the new milestone with new priorities and then work on that set. And we just move from subset to subset. That's how it should work. But at least for Cinder, we have such a backlog that there are things that were left over from previous. And in our case, where we have third-party vendors, we have engineers that are doing their best to get their patches merged, and we need some kind of way to pull things across those lines so that we're how do I say this? So we're not throwing any of our contributors under the bus. Like we're trying to, it's multifold in that we're trying to prioritize our milestone objectives, as well as make sure that we're getting timely reviews for patches that other vendors desperately need to have merged. And so sometimes it's not always ideal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I totally understand. So my main concern was like we have the same understanding of the priority thing. Like I should not go with a takeaway like priority means something different for me and others. If I'm okay, like I'm fine if you want to overload the review priority thing to focus on things apart from the milestone thing, but at least the understanding should be common. So right now what we are discussing is apart from the milestones, when we have this festival of reviews, at that point we'll use the review priority option to prioritize those particular reviews. Since if we don't, then we have like 100 patches that is not feasible to review. Right?
Yeah, I agree. And just some way to like lift a set of patches up out of the set that we like to have extra focus. For instance, like Stephen Finn's API changes, like that's something we've been trying to get merged and circling back on, for a few cycles. And at this point, like we just really need to get that stuff landed and move on. And so it's helpful in those situations to be able to elevate so that the other cores can see and we can move quickly on things like that.
Yeah, sure. I totally understand. And yeah, the other concern I had with the modifying the ACLs for the review priority, again, like this is the same around that discussion where cores might know the better priorities for the community, but the priority would mean different for an individual contributor where they have a deadline, they want to like get something merged in time. So like opening it to, I mean, I like the proposal by Doug to make it like a hashtag and then we can decide. But yeah, it would create a mess if we allow everyone to set it.
Yeah. I think, like Doug's tag is sort of like the way we used to use the RC candidate, when we're at RC time for bugs that people thought, wanted to get in, and then we would decide which ones were actual RC candidates. So.
I've been going through the dashboard a little bit on this call, just trying to take care of some of the easiest small ones and some of the older ones too, because there's a lot of simple driver patches that have been around for a long time, and I want to hope
There's some Gorka patches from like 4 years ago that really should get in. I thought we had merged them already, but yeah. Okay, so
So Brian, did you update the Tiny CC link or?
I haven't updated the Tiny CC link because I want to be sure I know what we're doing before I do that.
All right.
So at the very bottom of the Etherpad now, I did the improved version that's got the change Eric discovered. And that does seem to work. But the dashboard only has one thing in it because there's only one high priority item at this point. So I don't know if somebody wants to go through real quick, or we want to just stick with the original dashboard for today.
Hey, Brian, I just clicked on that link, the improved one, and it basically comes up empty for me.
There should be just one.
Well, you're showing as a reviewer on that, so let me see if you've actually reviewed it.
Oh, I see.
That would mean, Walt, that
Yeah,
you
so
have
you
not.
did review it. Okay. So yeah, so the idea with this I don't know if this is a good idea or not. The reason I did it like this was so that you could cycle through. So as soon as you reviewed something, if you refresh the page, you don't have to look at it anymore. You're just looking at stuff that's available to be reviewed.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah.
All right, the next task is to filter out things with WIP in the beginning.
Okay, so that one, I guess I could, if you look at the comment. So there are two ways to do the WIP. There's like a WIP state that you can set in Garrett, and there's also -1 for workflow. So those are all filtered out. But yeah, the WIP,
It's
think
just the text. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
if it's just in the text.
Doesn't the WIP state like hide it from other people?
It hides it. I don't know if it hides it from other people. It hides it from like the default dashboard, I think.
Or other people can open it, but it doesn't show up in the lists or something.
Yeah, I think.
So I will be honest, like I still use the WIP in the commit message rather than using the get it way.
It depends on the goal, right? Like sometimes I have a patch that has WIP in the commit message because it's there and I still need to go write tests or something, but I might still want feedback on it from anyone that wants to look at it. I mean, there's a difference between don't look at this at all versus I know it's not done, but I would like some feedback if you want to give it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I'm not sure what people are trying to use WIP for.
Brian, can I make a small request? Can we add the just review priority, anything more than 0? Like, because there's a 1 and there's a 2 apparently.
Oh, okay.
That might be a nightmare, but
No, I think it's review priority.
Yeah, Eric, as you said, like we might have different goals for the WIP thing, but just if it is clearly spelled out somewhere, then again, the same thing about the common understanding of things. Like I can say, like if I have WIP in commit message, I need feedback. Otherwise, the gateway won't. I mean, don't look at it. So.
Okay, just add another URL at the bottom of the Etherpad. I think this one does what you want, John. But give it a try.
Yes, I see. Well, my own patch now.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Which you shouldn't see. So why is that?
Oh yeah, the not mine, I guess, isn't working for you, Anthony.
Oh, it was actually submitted by my colleague. So, because there's
Oh.
believe it or not, I'm Anthony Galika and he's
Oh.
Anthony Boa. Yeah.
Oh, I can't see the last name. It's
Yeah.
dotted. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
We have a lot of work confusion due to that naming scenario. To
Yeah,
Anthony G's GA.
When I was at Rackspace, there were like 8 Brians just in our Blacksburg office. And then when I would visit San Antonio, there was like 100 Brians. So it was just crazy. Okay. All right. So John, if you're so cores, why don't you just assign priorities? And I guess the thing to do is based on who's here. So we got Anthony here from Hitachi. We had some people here from NetApp, I think, if they're still around.
So I don't know, but like we're basically only using review priority 1 for this, or
No, we can use 1 or 2.
so what do those mean?
I don't know.
I mean, that's up
2
for
means
us.
like
Like,
really do it, and I guess 1 means
yeah, like this would be like a patch. I view it as like patches that we should have gotten to before but haven't, and just need attention, just a way of drawing attention. And then 1 or 2 is just the sense of urgency.
But you can't tell from the I would have to make like a different section of the dashboard to separate them out, because the RP just gets the green check mark, because as far as a merge requirement, it's satisfied having any value at all, I think.
The other issue is, I think when a patch is updated, that RP gets dropped and would have to be put back. So
Yeah,
that's
it's not sticky. Yeah, that was one of the issues I think Brian brought up sometime. But yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
discussing.
that's right. The more we look at this, the more I realize the review priority thing just turned out to be not very useful.
it's almost perfect because only cores can do it, which means largely it's immune from overuse. If it would just persist, that would be
all right. So let me look. I can't remember if there's a way to make it persist or not. That may have.
Well, it has to do with that copy condition stuff, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, does it even make sense to remove the review priority? I mean, if I'm reviewing a patch and someone updates it, it's still a priority to merge it. Like, what was the use case for making it non-sticky? I mean, we can just like do this overall change, right, across OpenStack for this, if there is no use case for the other one.
I would totally agree, because it seems to me like you want it to be sticky, because that's like the whole point of it.
And I think other teams might be affected with it as well. Like they might not use it because of this. So
Yeah, I don't. Well, I think for now, I'll look into the making it sticky business, but I mean, for now, I think just I see ironic weekly priority. That's a good idea. All right, so just so for now, I don't know if it matters. 1 or 2 is going to make it show up in that dashboard, so that's fine, and then we can figure out the other stuff later. I guess the main thing is just to get some stuff in there for people to review.
Also add another question. I mean, I'm just adding more to the complexity part of it, but how do we sense urgency? Like, is it like it's a critical patch that needs to get in, or is it like it has been very long since we didn't look at it, so now, I mean, it becomes urgent that way?
Yeah, I think for now, up until like milestone 1, what we're just going to use them. Just that. Let's get some eyes on this. This is something we need to review and merge. And then we can refine things later.
Okay, it's generalized at this point. I mean, not specific to any condition.
quick question for everyone here. Are release notes a requirement?
It depends on the patch, but usually, yes.
Okay. Cool, because I found like 3 reviews in a row that didn't have them, and I'm putting -1s. Please put release notes. But I'm starting to think now that I'm wrong at that.
Well, there's let me give you a link to the docs where we discuss this.
Cool.
Yeah, so you can there's a quick checklist at the top that just says when we want them.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
I think the way to look at release notes is like, so it is to inform the operator, like the deployer or the end user. I mean, mostly operators. So what information would be beneficial for them? Like when we fix a bug and they have been like facing that issue for a long time, or like we introduce a new feature. So in those scenarios, we certainly want to notify them. So those kind of scenarios do require release note. Otherwise, if it's an internal fix that is not user visible, it might not in that case.
Understood. Okay, that's basically the criteria I was using. There was one where it was just a version upgrade, so I didn't ding them for no release notes, and then there was another that added a feature, so I did ding them for no release notes. All right, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you can drop that link as part of your comment in case they don't know about, because I think that also explains how to write the release note.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, good idea. Thank you.
So then, yeah, that way it's kind of a helpful -1.
Yeah.
So Anthony, I was reviewing your driver patch, and yeah, it would be great if you can give me an overview about this DRS. Like I read a few things about the deduplication and compression, the storage space save it provides, but what does it mean for? I mean, if you can give me a quick overview, like it would help me review the patch better.
Yeah. So a DRS volume is basically it's a data reduction volume, and it's shared on the pool. So there's basically just a whole lot of data sharing. So the duplication and compression setting is also, as you imagine, a kind of data sharing as well. And the DRS volume has some like they're basically tied together, and the compression setting informs how the DRS volume uses the deduplication or the compression. I don't fully understand or fully know all the exact features of DRS volume, but that's the purpose. These two things are basically completely tied together. And then the other aspect of the DRS volume is that it's a wide setting or a permanent setting, whereas with deduplication and compression, you can change that setting even on a DRS volume other than to disable it. But that's actually coming in the future, that ability. But yeah, so basically like any non-DRS volume, you can set dedupe and compression on if the pool supports it. but those wouldn't be the same type. And then so as far as like it's a data saving feature, and then on top of that, it enables support for our advanced thin image or advanced snapshot support. And in this particular array that you're reviewing for the B20, it only supports like the whole idea behind this, or one of the big ideas behind this array is data sharing. So it basically only supports these DRS volumes for actual like presenting to a host. And the issue and the reason why the driver didn't work for B20 to begin with is because of the DRS setting. And then on top of that, in prior microcodes, we didn't have the ability to clone from our advanced thin image pairs, which obviously doesn't work with OpenStack. Other than unless you did like a real slow like X copy clone or something. So so now the additional new feature, which is vclone, allows a clone of the allows us to clone DRS volumes basically. And I remember in the previous review you had for us, you mentioned how it wasn't flattened down, and I actually agreed with you. There was one thing I didn't like about the design on the storage side, and so we came up with a new implementation to hide those negatives from the customer. But yeah, it all revolves around this DRS volume type. I'm guessing you're figuring that out because you're asking.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like, obviously this is better compared to like a normal volume. I don't know the performance impacts on this, but yeah, looks like this is something. If I have the array that supports it, I want it to be enabled by default. Is that assumption true? Like,
so yeah, that's actually one thing I considered, but the thing is some arrays do support it and some don't, and the driver doesn't really it doesn't really know that there's different array types, so to speak. But it's like, as far as like the array itself, it's not going to function without this volume type. So we actually debated whether to we had a big debate whether to make it a back-end option or a extra spec. And the reason we chose the extra spec is because there are older arrays that actually do support DRS volumes and normal volumes. So it's not like the newer arrays only support the DRS. Oh, and I just remembered the bigger defining factor between DRS and just a regular dedupe compression volume is the DRS has ADR, like adaptive data reduction. So there's a whole thing running in the background, doing data reduction and stuff like that.
okay, yeah, I was just concerned if we had any limitations with this, so that we are giving the control to the operator to like enable, disable it. But looks like it's just the array thing. Like if it supports it, the operator will enable it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the great overview.
Yeah, no problem.
So I can see Doug has something. I don't know what it is about, but yeah, he has a topic.
I mean, like I said, I don't want to interrupt what you guys are working on, and I'm newish to tinkering with Cinder, and so new there. I have a use case that is a little bit different than the regular Cinder use case, and so I just am curious about appetite around some of that, or if I'm kind of barking up the wrong tree. Is really all. It's like the other day I had mentioned to you guys, we're using NetApp's SVM or vServer features and kind of segregating that over and tinkering with the driver. And I had said, like, there's not hook points necessarily or API points for some of what we're doing, so we're relying on OpenStack notifications. And so I would, if doing this with Cinder is the right way, I would want to figure out like what would be the best way to kind of go about this, and or if my use case is really not something that would be valid inside of Cinder. That's all.
Are you referring to the case where you have this custom wrapper on top of the NetApp driver and you want to dynamically add SVMs based on the project being added?
Yeah, and that's a part of it, but there's the whole kind of path as well. So part of that is, at least I have glued onto the like volume type. So when a user creates a volume type, there's no real, a backend driver does not get, there's no call to that, right? There's no, it's just lands in the API server, and that's the end of that. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out a volume type. Is that intended to match really one-to-one to a pool on the backend implementation, or is that really just a scheduler hint to help it search for where it should route that to the backend driver?
You can use it any number of ways, right? It just depends on the extra specs that are in there and how you define it.
Yeah.
We have multiple volume types in our deployment, and one of them specifies a specific backend name. So if you specify that volume type, it always goes to that one backend, always. And the other volume type, we don't specify it because we're doing some magic behind the scenes to do some bad stuff. But effectively, we don't tie it to anything. And it is more of a hint to the scheduler to say, hey, you know, we want these capabilities here, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, it just depends on how you want to define it.
So I had also, as part of this question, I had floated out Swordfish. If you guys have heard of Swordfish, and if any vendors that you're working with are utilizing that. So I come from the like bare metal server world, and Redfish is kind of becoming an API for controlling the gear out of band to the BMC, and Swordfish is a extension on that, where you're controlling like the storage arrays, and you're able to do some management in a more standardized way. And so that's what, at least we're trying to play with, this idea of provisioning the storage hardware, provisioning a SVM, provisioning IP data to it so that it can be then consumed in the OpenStack cloud. And today I've kind of abused some of the things like the volume type. When a volume type is there, if there's some extra properties on that, we're going ahead and creating the pool on some of our storage gear. So it's kind of that whole flow of being able to not just have those SVMs dynamically added, but also to like provision those.
So as I understand, Redfish is for managing the whole system, and Swordfish is an extension for the storage specific case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, regarding your, yeah, as you said, like it's a part of it, the dynamic thing. But I mean, from Cinder perspective, we support like a particular backend having its own Cinder volume service. So I mean, to scale it, like we have like a number of services and number of processes running it. And now those services could be deployed inside a container pod, depending on the deployment tool. But yeah, your kind of implementation is a very custom specific. I mean, again, like if you want to like get more input from NetApp or Cinder team, and then we can refine it. But in the current form, it is not an accepted standard, like to dynamically be able to add or remove backends. That would confuse scheduler in many ways, like making decisions. And yeah, I'm not totally sure of all the cases right now. I can't think of much, but yeah, surely it's not the standard way we support
Sure.
doing it.
So kind of at least what we were kind of thinking was, and so we're just using right now, NetApp is one storage vendor where we've got a couple. That's just where I have the NetApp in my team, one of the NetApps that we're playing with. But the example is like a little bit like how Nova works with having a virtualization implementation that is just talking to Ironic rather than talking to an actual hypervisor. So when you do a Nova server create, if you're using the Ironic hypervisor driver inside of Nova, it's provisioning a bare metal. And so that's similar to how we were thinking of doing this, because Ironic today has Redfish drivers in it. And what we were thinking is that we would add those storage clusters and the actual metal hardware that makes up these storage devices into Ironic, and then it would be some communication of Cinder to Ironic, much like Nova does to Ironic in that case. And like I said, not fully thought out, just whiteboard sketches at best. And I just kind of was curious if anybody else had, because today, if I read the Cinder docs and I read how to deploy it, it's basically a provider pre-configured thing of you've set up your storage array, you've configured the IPs, you've configured all that. What I'm essentially looking to do is we have all this hardware in the data center already, and we might assign it, to somebody dynamically.
Yeah, I mean, the use case makes sense for sure, like dynamically be able to provision storage for different bare metal servers. Somehow, yeah, I mean, again, Cinder was designed, as you said, like in this way where we do like day 0 operations, day 1 operations, where we do this configuration pre-hand, and then the deployment is ready to use, and we barely modify these settings in a like production cluster. So yeah, the dynamic aspect is obviously missing. It is a good use case to consider. Again, like we could do more discussions around it. But yeah, as of right now, like I'm just talking about the present case. It is not supported thing. Yeah.
I could start by writing something. I don't know if you guys would want me to write that as a proposed use case to a patch to Cinder, or like if you want me to have that completely out, you know, I'll throw it on my Rackspace URL somewhere. And don't hate me because I work at Rackspace. I know Rackspace has a bad rep and a bad name everywhere, but I am trying to make us better with OpenStack again, and we actually, you know, joined again the foundation and paying there. But
Welcome back.
yeah, yeah, it's been a fun battle. So we'll see how.
Dan used to work at Rackspace. Maybe I'm not.
I was at Rackspace. It was a while. I got my 5-year flag. So at least 5 years. But they wound up, they created this OpenStack Innovation Center that was funded by Intel. And they moved all the OpenStack developers into that thing. And it turned out Intel was paying our salaries, but we didn't know it. And then Intel decided to just cancel that program. And so we all got fired. It was a interesting time. So
I heard about that.
Yeah.
There is no castle anymore. I mean, there is, but castle
man.
as you know it is gone. So
where are you physically located?
I'm in Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
I work remote. Have always worked remote.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got me on board for open source contributions. I actually started in OpenStack public cloud, doing hypervisor stuff because I worked on KVM and Zen and bare metal stuff. So now I've taken over. I finally have repeated it a billion times over of this is, as far as the data centers, this is stupid that everybody does their own thing. Just have all their hardware racked and ready, and all of our internal business units can build a top. So my customers are not external facing people. It's all the internal teams. So like my biggest customer is our OpenStack group that I'm no longer actually a part of, but they build OpenStack deployments on top. And so rather than them getting hardware directly, I've already got it racked and ready, and are in my org, the accountants and number crunchers come up with, same way that you get at AWS, a per hour cost or whatever, we come up with costing that way. And so I'm trying to work through how to get all of the hardware kind of in this minimal touch, if you will. So storage arrays are kind of the next thing that we've been playing with a little bit. And some of it is brownfield, which is what that existing, hacked together example is supposed to be, that here's a NetApp that was already shared by a couple of OpenStack builds. Each one had their own SVM and did their own thing and used the Cinder driver, used it how it's supposed to be used. But how can I provision that and provision those. And so my team is also using OpenStack for the actual metal, if you will. So it's I mean, the Red Hat project and the open source project back in the day was O, right? And so this is kind of the same thing, using OpenStack to deal with the hardware that then you build your real OpenStack on top. And so anyway, hopefully that gives at least some context of where I'm coming from. And I'm very much trying to do it in such a way, not of the old Rackspace of before, which is they took, whatever release of OpenStack, forked, made a bajillion changes, and then if it landed upstream, great. If it didn't land upstream, they stayed there, right? And the group that you worked in, Brian, was focused on upstream work, and there was like a big wall between your group and the other groups, right? And so I am very much trying to say, like, let's start with engaging upstream first and seeing what we can do. And so this is just, like I said, this is at best a drawing on a whiteboard right now. And so I don't have anything necessarily concrete. I'm just curious if you guys have heard anybody having similar interest, and if so, I'd like to work with them. And if not, how can I at least make you guys aware, or at least publish that use case and see if I can engage with you guys on providing that for Cinder, right? So that was kind of
yeah, as I said, the use case is good. It's just like, as I said, like scheduler might have problems scheduling things. I mean, again, like you did something with the volume types and the capabilities thing, I think. But again, like if I keep thinking of more use cases, like we have Glance using Cinder as a backend. So your earlier question was regarding the volume types. So in that case, what I did when I was supporting multiple stores for the Glance backend, there was a one-to-one mapping between the Glance backend and the Cinder backend. So I used volume types for that. Now it is on a backend level mapping, but for a NetApp use case, I had to do like a pool level mapping because I wanted to control which pool my images should go. So that was another case. Now, if I start using Cinder as a backend for Glance, then like the dynamic implementation might not fit well with that. So we will need to add additional like considerations to support that. So, I mean, we can surely work on a custom solution where it would, I mean, the customer would know, okay, this is what I'm getting. These are the limitations, and this is what I can work with. So that is surely, I mean, we can pursue that part, but supporting it as a standard. I mean, are we talking about like an ironic driver for Cinder where it would be a wrapper for like other backend drivers? I mean, it could make decisions based on that. Is that something where our proposal is going?
Yeah. So to give you an idea how that Cinder driver that I linked is doing it. When I mentioned there's those multiple SVMs and just trying to handle those. So each one of those is a SVM for another OpenStack deployment there, and OpenStack then has those creds, or at least what we were aiming at was to use like the O naming. If you're familiar with O, if not, we're calling our project Understack, as lovely as that is. But you essentially, to deploy an OpenStack, you need a pile of gear. Some of those are control plane. Some of those become your Nova hypervisors. some of those are your storage nodes, and you're running Ceph or LVM or something on those, and then KVM there, and then control plane. And the idea there is these boxes are actually coming from via me as the API, which is again OpenStack. It's OpenStack all the way down, right? Like all those memes. And so you would say, I'm going to build an OpenStack. I need these servers. I need a storage device. And so if we were to use the NetApp, that's what we've got, is a bunch of OpenStack deployments that use a NetApp, which is why I started there. I am provisioning the networks, like physical networks in the data center, hooking those up so that all those hypervisors are on that network. They're their own tenant. I'm provisioning a SVM on that Cinder, or sorry, on that NetApp. And we might have a couple of those tenants that share the same NetApp. And that is something that, you know, the Cinder driver supports today. It wants one SVM. So I give them those creds that are created. I'm giving the upper OpenStack, if you will, all that. And they're using the traditional Cinder driver to that. But where I create that private volume type in there so that it's creating, though in NetApp they call it flex vols. So a flex vol is what it's exporting as pools. So I'm creating those, and then much like one of the other topics that was talked about, where you said also glance images, like I create a volume in one of those pools is used for glance images and all that. So I'm creating a volume so that they can be ready for turnkey kind of deployment. That's where they can upload their volumes and use that. They are then going to use that SVM, however they're going to use that SVM to create actual VM volumes.
Okay.
Does that make a little more sense?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the O thing helped a lot. So in O, we have like the undercloud and overcloud. Where
Right.
undercloud is OpenStack, and so we are deploying OpenStack on top of OpenStack. And I think, okay, so this is for like the undercloud use case where we will use a Cinder ironic thing, which will create those SVM on a per tenant basis, and each tenant, which we call it, is a separate OpenStack deployment, which will leverage that SVM. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense now.
So it's like, I don't necessarily want to modify the existing NetApp driver or those, right? Like, because they're going to use that the natively that way, but it's like the funky way that you can use Nova today to talk to Ironic, which deploys either CentOS or Ubuntu that's running KVM, that is then creating hypervisors that are joining Nova to create VMs, right? Like it's that under and over cloud separation, and Nova has that concept in it. So that's what I was kind of wondering is, today, if I read all the Cinder stuff, the expectation is that you have already, like, it's out of scope of having something that's configuring your things. And since each of these vendors is kind of always going to be different, Cinder's already done a big lift of generalizing and making an API for a lot of the functionality. So I was kind of wondering is, would it make sense then to potentially add stuff in there to make some of the configuration more dynamic to support that undercloud case?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember if we have this, but yeah, I mean, if we are talking about an abstraction layer where Cinder could, like, so Cinder is already at the abstraction layer here. which could talk to a lot of backends. Like we can configure multiple backends, but again, that's static. So now we are talking about another abstraction layer on top of beneath Cinder, where that would make the decisions based on the driver that is configured. Like right now, it's the NetApp use case. It could be Dell, PowerFlex, or some other backend driver. And based on that, it will any construct it has. Like for NetApp, it is the new SVM. For Dell, it could be something else. It would be able to create those dynamically and manage them. I mean, yeah, as long as we have, I mean, yeah, again, it is a very specific use case. Like it again doesn't support the standard OpenStack deployment. I mean, we should not recommend it to be used apart from this particular use case that you mentioned. I think so. I mean, again, I can think of like a lot of places where, I mean, the customers keep on experimenting with different things. Like if Cinder claims it is supported and some customers tries to use it in a real deployment, trying to think like, okay, I have this dynamic feature, but somehow operations start breaking, then that would be really bad for them. So yeah, we can surely think. I mean, I would also like to know like Brian's or other people's opinion on it, but it makes sense to me at least.
Yeah, and I'm sorry because I zoned out in the middle of that.
Yeah, no worries. So we can back up to whatever.
So yeah, what was the API change you're wondering?
So no specific API change yet, right? Like this is just a drawing on a whiteboard. But in the OOO, if you're familiar with OOO, and I mean you said you were at Rackspace, so I don't know how familiar you are with O3, which is this the same dang thing.
Yeah, we were using it. Well, we've used it a lot at Red Hat though.
Okay, all right. So the I use OOO as the example because I think that's also much farther along. But OOO, you have I think the term they use is under cloud in the docs, and then you build an OpenStack on top that becomes your OpenStack. And in that, Nova has an ironic backend as well as like a KVM and ESXi and whatever other backends it has. But we'll just stick to the ironic and the KVM for this example. So you have your OpenStack under cloud OpenStack deployed, and you use Nova and Neutron as it is, and then your over cloud deployment is asking the under cloud Nova, please create me 12 CentOS or Ubuntu servers, and then it uses those as hypervisors. Neutron has port information and IP information that is all the data necessary to hook those hypervisors up, and the overcloud gets deployed successfully, happily. OOO has examples of using those same that same hardware to make like LVM based servers that can be used for Cinder, but what's not really automated or connected through is the lift to kind of publishing that, right? So OOO is really going to use like Ansible. It's going to scrape all that, write static configs that are the Cinder configs, and it's only geared towards LVM because it's using Ansible to drive a Linux host to create LVM stuff. So that's not really an API way to say, I want to provision a NetApp. I want to provision right. It's no matter what that is today, there is no abstraction layer for provisioning your storage in your undercloud. The DMTF that drives Redfish, which is becoming like the standard for controlling the physical gear out of band, has made a extension called Swordfish for storage array, storage hardware kind of extensions. And so what we are looking at is Ironic supports driving hardware through, HP's protocol or Dell's protocol or Redfish. We're looking at having Ironic be aware of the bare metal hardware that makes up a NetApp, makes up a Dell. You guys have patches right now for a Dell to support NVMe over TCP on something, right? And that, I forget if it's they call all their stuff Power, so I don't remember if it's a Power, Flex, Store, Max.
Flex.
Okay, thank you. Do you work at Dell or John or no? Are you at Dell? No. Okay, I don't know where you're at. So,
Red Hat.
Red Hat. Okay. So they are also going to add the same kind of SVM concept into that product as well. And so the kind of idea would be that, or at least the idea is Cinder a place that it could run in that undercloud as well and provide APIs that are abstractions for configuring more of that storage device, right? So like today, if you are running a NetApp or a PowerFlex, if you want to create another storage pool, you're having to do that. Like that's an exercise for the user to use their own tools generically, and then you create a volume type that somehow matches to that based on the properties. And so at least like first question would be, what if Cinder had an admin level call of like, create me that pool, and that driver could then be able to implement that so that some of the storage hardware could be administered by OpenStack admins through OpenStack APIs.
Yeah, so right now all this SVM creation, everything is done by the NetApp team, and Cinder just references to them as static configuration. I think Doug's point is like, if I want to use OpenStack to provision OpenStack, then I should be able to provision storage, like at least the software parts of it, which is like a SVM in a cluster, and I should be able to assign it to like different, bare metal nodes. So that is kind of the functionality it's looking at, I think. And the proposal was to like, again, I'm not sure. I'm also just sketching as him. Like we could support the Cinder Ironic driver, which is again an abstraction layer on top of our existing vendor drivers, but it provides that abstraction in a way that what do we call, like the SVM concept, like in NetApp it is SVM, any concept that is related to backend, it will be able to dynamically create it, provision it, provide it all the credentials and everything to that bare metal node. So that is kind of us. It is very associated to a specific case. It might not work in the overall overview of the OpenStack thing. But yeah, I think that's kind of my understanding of it. And we do use Ironic in like the undercloud for OOO, where we want to provision the overcloud bare metal nodes. In that case, this Nova Ironic driver is already used.
Yeah, it's basically saying like extending out the undercloud part of OOO to be able to configure the storage devices for consumption by the overcloud. Because today there's a part that's done outside of OpenStack.
And again, I think in this case, the undercloud Cinder would not be creating volumes on those SVMs. It will just hand over those SVMs to the bare metal, whatever they want to do with it. So it is, I mean, again, the isolation is for the bare metal to perform anything. Like it is like the bare metal owns the SVM. It is not the underlying thing that would be creating volumes or like doing operations on top of it. So the top layer would look similar to what we have today already, like static configuration on the Cinder side for that particular SVM. Because that SVM is dynamically provisioned by a Cinder living beneath it. That is,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the comment.
So, but the SVM lives in the back end, right? Because it's this storage virtual machine. So the idea is that, so we'd have to enhance the drivers to be able to do that.
And the reason I was more engaging with Cinder, or at least floating out engaging, with Cinder here, is that some of the operations, like I have an SVM already, and if I look at, and I mean I'm using SVM just because,
Sure.
But it could be any of the things. You already have to have created what your pool is going to be on your storage device, right? There's no way for like whoever your administrator is of your storage device creates your pool. There is no, and then you're creating a volume type that targets that that pool, right? And so what I was thinking here is like, why couldn't there be a Cinder API that is an admin type side? So like Neutron calls things that are like for driving the underlying network, they call it provider, right? A provider network. How do I get out to the internet? Oh, it's a provider network. And a provider network can only be touched by somebody with admin permissions against that OpenStack. So similar way, could there be inside of Cinder a way that there is a go and create me the actual backing for this pool, and then each of those drivers could implement that, and you wouldn't be sending a request to the NetApp or the PowerFlex or the whoever team to actually go create those. It would be something that you could self-serve a little bit.
Yeah, it is like a management abstraction on top of all the drivers. Right now, Cinder can only create like LUNs and like resources on the already provided containers by the backend. Now, I think Doug is looking for a way to be able to manage all the high-level apps, concepts as well, like the flex volume or the SVM. Cinder should be able to manage. I mean, somehow we do have in Fiber Channel, we have the zone manager where we use it to modify the zoning things between the connections. Like on the switch level, I think we can modify that. So it is not unusual that we do some sort of management things with like cases like FC. But yeah, I haven't seen like anything done with Cinder to. I mean, it would obviously make the work easier for like operators. They don't have to like go to NetApp, like create these things and then come on the Cinder, okay, configure these things. So they would be able to do everything mostly on their own with minimal interaction on both the sides.
So the idea, so just like drastically simplify it. The idea is just right now you've got to do something in 2 places. The operator's got to go to the array, create what they need, and then they've got to go to Cinder and configure a volume type that's going to somehow consume that.
Right.
And so what you'd like to do is tie it all together so that just by using Cinder, you can get both things.
I mean, there will be 2 cinders. One is the management one, and one will be the actual one using the backend.
But you know, taking that aside, even in the just generic overcloud case, with that API, you would allow people to create where those pools are, right? Like, because today, at least, again, I'm sorry that I keep using NetApp as an example, because that's what I've messed with the most. I wish I need more. I need to play with Cinder more, and I need more experience with other backends. But today the configuration is you have a NetApp. You create the config file that it is. You're pointing to an area, and then you have to go create a flex volume, and then you must create. If I read the docs, you must then create a volume type that can target that flex volume, and that becomes your pool. So
sort of yes and no. I mean, the volume types are a bit more flexible, and that one volume type can cover several different backends.
right. So
if you planned ahead, you could have it so that the NetApp volume type, I mean, we don't encourage people to like include the name in there, but you know what I mean? So you'd have a volume type that could cover all
right.
the ones that you added, or if you needed something more specific, you would make a specific volume type. I guess.
So changing how volume type works is not what I would want to actually propose, right? I think like what you guys have is the right way. How I've just hacked it together as far as some of that demo is just I'm abusing that of like you create a volume type and you make a bunch of properties just because I haven't had an object, if you will. But like if I use the OpenStack CLI, you can do OpenStack volume backend pool list, for example, and you're getting what all your pools are. What I would in this case of this existing, I would have a OpenStack volume backend pool create command, right? That could call a function on the driver for that backend that could create me the actual pool on the thing, rather than needing to reach out to somebody else to create that, right? So that's really the extension, at least what I was thinking.
Yeah. So like comparing it to the prior use case, I'm assuming like, so in the case of like the undercloud overcloud thing we are talking about, like Cinder as a management interface, I was hoping like NetApp would already provide all the required information to the operator to be able to create the SVM and the flex volumes, like the backend and the pool. All these things he should be able to configure, but at the same time, I think there is also a limitation of the knowledge, like how much knowledge the operator has of the backend side. I mean, somehow like it is working in this way because NetApp knows more about these concepts and how the limitations and everything over it. Now, if natively we provide the support, I mean, again, the vendor team can tell better. But if we natively provide this support, like I'm thinking there might be cases where someone could use it in the non-intended way, like creating pools and pools out inside the same SVM and somehow, yeah, I don't know how harmful
it would be, to me, it would be locked down the same permissioning way that a volume type today is, right? It's not just any old user. It's a user with admin permissions to. to do that,
Yeah.
right?
But volume type is more of like an OpenStack thing, whereas this API would like, I mean, again, we will need to create an interface to be able for the vendor drivers to implement a solution if they want to opt in or not into this feature.
Yep.
But that's more of a storage array, I mean, storage side related thing, not an OpenStack thing.
Right.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it more. I mean, my gut feeling is just that the storage array should be managed by the people who are specialists in that, and not.
Sure. So I'm not saying. I'm not trying to say any old random person can do it, right? Like put a
right. But I'm just wondering. Yeah, sorry. So it's like either we have to build in a lot of smarts into our side so that you can't fuck stuff up, or we'd have to screw it down so tight that only like 1 or 2 people are going to ever use it. So it just doesn't.
So
it just seems like,
yeah.
I mean, the analogy I'm sort of thinking is just like, so we have this ability to manage volumes, so you can bring them into OpenStack if they already exist on the other side. And I'm thinking that's sort of the way we deal with the pools too, is that the stuff is there and then we make it possible for you to use them. But we don't handle the creation part. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic about what can be accomplished.
So again, I'm not saying it's exposed to like every old OpenStack user. It's more of that. I'm trying to build a overcloud using O, right? And today, when you try to use O and you're trying to use any storage backend, you look at that and there's a hard stop. Now go and do whatever your storage backend thing requires, right? There is no way to create a template inside of O or anything that says this is how a storage device would be configured. It's just a hard stop. Now come back do your thing, come back with the data that Cinder needs to talk to that storage device. And so what I'm just trying to come up with is, could there be a way that could be templatized inside of a O and it's an operator thing, so that the organization utilizing using undercloud and using O to deploy their overcloud, they could have their storage folks say, yes, here's the template that is acceptable for what we're doing. That way you can provision your thing without having a stop going engage human, so that it can be scripted all the way through. Because like I said, today you can build all the hypervisor, you can plumb, you can create templates and everything for your network. You can say, I'm using Cisco switches, I'm using Dell switches, I'm using Arista switches. Like, it doesn't matter what that is. And there's backends that each of those vendors have implemented that calls that, right? And is it a bag of dicks of bulls and numbers and all that for each vendor? Absolutely. But it's the folks that have done that and have created that kind of template, and that's passed along to that API, right? And like, so you'd never have like backend pool create and have a very specific parameters. It would kind of be like, this is targeting your vendor backend, which is what Neutron has on their ML. They call it ML2. I don't know what the M stands for, but layer 2 configuration, right? They have ML2 plugins, and Arista, Juniper, Cisco all have implemented ML2 backends, and you gotta pass a bag of data for those. And so that's what I was thinking. Could that be exposed in a similar way to how those projects have kind of exposed that, so that O could not have the like stop go call human, but to let that be provisioned all the way through.
So using Triplo as an analogy is good, but Triplo is not currently under development, so there won't be any changes to it. But just mentioning it, like we were.
I would, yeah, I would love to have another, some other better examples, but I've used Triplo as my example.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what folks have known.
Yeah, I was just mentioning, like, we won't be doing any changes to Triplo now. And so, yeah, again, like, there are two aspects to it. Either it comes inbuilt into the Cinder project itself, or it is a deployment tooling thing. Right now, we are totally discussing about the Cinder aspect of it. Now, as we talk about the cloud operator, we do allow some cloud admin commands, like you were saying, like creating a volume type. But mostly it is only concerned with like modifying the data inside what is already pre-built on the storage side. Like I don't remember, like even if we like freeze a host, then we won't allow volume creation into that host. But it's not like we are not allowing any volumes to be created outside of OpenStack into that backend. So we are not controlling the backend side of things. We are just restricting things on the OpenStack side. So that is what I have observed. Like our admin definition of admin is more of like an OpenStack controlled admin, not interfering with the vendor side of things. That is still today. I'm not saying we are not open to like doing this, but at the same time, now there are two discussions. One is like an abstract layer on top of all the backend drivers, but the other discussion is like just introduce these interface methods where we could create a pool where we could create an SVM or like a backend, and Cinder would support it, and any backend that opts in would implement their logic for it, and we could do the API request for that. Now, is that something the admins would want to have and could use easily? I mean, we are talking about OpenStack, like we are talking about operators as being very smart. I have seen like they do very dumb things at times. Like I can give an example of like someone pulling off like 500 LUNs out of the OpenStack deployment, 300 VMs were affected. Like there's just one scenario. Like this is bad.
And you're not wrong, right? Like that's where some of the stuff around the RBAC updates across the project, that's been talking about that, right? Because there's today the roles are really very basic of admin, member, and reader, and so like we've been trying to talk at the TC level around kind of defining personas, I think is the word we've started to use to have more roles out of the box, right? So for the ironic side, we have created some roles in there that there is infrastructure owner and infrastructure lessee, right? And the infrastructure owner can do more to that bare metal box, whereas the infrastructure lessee can do less to that box, right? And those are kind of two separate roles. And it's the same way of Neutron having the provider operation around network that can manipulate more versus the OpenStack admin that is not necessarily able to manipulate as much. And it's kind of the same concept of, is there would there be an interest in allowing some of those storage admin type operation to be available in a API for the backends to implement or not. And I'm totally cool if the answer is no. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I just at least wanted to, like I said, start with the conversation rather than doing something, you know, on our own and not having engaged the community.
Yeah. I mean, we did at some point do a lot of work around secure RBAC, and I mean, Brian was leading that effort for a very, I mean, across a few cycles. And I think the last update I remember from that was we will be sticking up with the project scope. The admin member reader, we will support it, but on a domain or a system level, we won't be doing it. Now there was an introduction of the service role. There was some talk about a manager role as well, but I don't think that I don't remember the what happened to that. Now I'm hearing this new concept about the infrastructure level, which is, I think, on the same lines with the system and project.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Ironic has probably more needs than the other projects because you allow access, right? Like way more access than we would normally do. So I can see Ironic needing those. I mean, the OpenStack wide thing was that each of the projects had sort of branched off and the RBAC got just like really confusing and hard to configure. So there was an idea we could try to standardize it. But to standardize it, a bunch of stuff got invented that didn't quite work. So I guess what I'm saying is, so I can see Ironic needing those, but I don't know that we would want to apply those elsewhere unless we absolutely had to.
Yeah, so Neutron uses those when you're running any of the drivers that can manipulate bare metal switches, right? They have that provider. It's the term they use, right? And so you've mentioned manager is, I think, a role that at least the TC has floated out there as adding into the default one. I've been trying to nudge, join the TC a little while ago. I've been trying to nudge them to at least don't just write roles with no purpose, like write a description of like the persona is, I think, what I got told to use as the phrase, but like who you intend for that to be. And that's what I'm saying on the Ironic side, that owner, that's what it is in all of our docs, is that owner thing, right? We would say that the owner is the DC operator is that higher privileged, would be mapped to that manager, maybe, if that's what gets adopted. On the Neutron side, that provider description would be mapped to that manager thing. And then would there be an interest in the same thing inside of Cinder, of having the ability for the backends to control more of the backend storage so that it's programmatic or not?
So the manager, as I understand it, the manager persona would be, you would have the ability, so you'd have the ability to do stuff that would affect your project, but would not affect the overall system. So for instance, like in Cinder, only an admin can create volume types, but we might be able to let a manager I don't
Okay,
know.
so I guess better would be the system scope, right? That is like the system scope.
Yeah. So what happened with the
manager's the wrong one. It's really the system scope that I'm referring to there, right? That's more what owner is bucketized to in Ironic. Ironic doesn't use it uses system scope, but we don't use it exclusively because you can have some hardware that is owned by this group and some hardware that is owned by that group, and you don't want to give both access to everything. So system scope wasn't good enough for us. I think now that we say this, the provider side of Neutron is controlled by that system scope as well, right? To like touch the bare metal switches. That's a better analogy.
So yeah, I will just roll back the discussion. Like we can discuss about the Cinder aspect. So I mean, the eventual final decision should come from vendors because we are modifying their side of things. So if they are okay, if they give us a go no go, like yeah, we really don't want to support the functionality of an admin or like a system scope admin or someone with higher privileges to be able to modify our storage related things. Then from Cinder side, we just need to implement the interface, an API call and a command and a proper like the secure RBAC role that we are discussing. But all these discussions from the Cinder side needs to happen once the vendors give the go or no go. Like
Sure.
if they really want something like this to be modified. I think in case of Neutron also the discussion started from the side where there were some switches or some hardware component layer 2, layer 3, which they wanted to be controlled by Neutron, and then Neutron implemented the support for it.
It's software-defined networking for right. That's for that aspect. I will say on the NetApp side, the same API call that is being done to get volume stats, that's the same call that you do to create a flex vol, but you're doing a post instead of a get on that same endpoint. And the script that I'm using to create the user credentials that I have to give Cinder already has permissions to create those flex vols. Cinder driver does not work unless it already has those permissions. And the little wrapper that I'm using to create the flex vols dynamically is using the Cinder driver or the Cinder REST client, whatever that is already in the Cinder code.
Yeah, I remember the discussion where the credentials are on the cluster level and not on a specific FlexVol or SVM. Surely, I mean, this might be specific to NetApp or might apply to all the
absolutely.
Yeah, but again, yeah, like so they manage their driver. Like we don't write code unless necessary in the NetApp driver. So I mean, it was their again, it's their decision. Like they want to introduce these things. So yeah, I mean,
that's
where
I got the idea, right? That I already saw that it was already there, and that was like the fastest way. That I was like, oh man, I can figure out how to create this just by reversing rather than what we're getting out of the get volume stats. If I just now call that data with the same post, I'm able to create the thing appropriately, right? Like, so it's like, it's not at least in that driver, it's not a huge lift to add that functionality. And so that's why I was asking you guys.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm happy to, like I said, I'm happy to write something up and whatnot. I'm looking if there is if you want me to write that up and float that to the mailing list or what. But if you guys aren't interested in that, I would not, pursue it with you guys. But that's kind of what I'm looking at is there interest? If there is, what do you want me to do moving forward? If there's not, that's also okay.
I mean, from the way I see it, if the vendors really want this to be an operation that the operators should be able to do, then of course we would be in agreement to support the interface side of things. But it won't be, I mean, it won't be fruitful if you just implement the interface and no vendor wants to implement the actual thing, like they are not comfortable with that. So yeah, surely if, so Brian, how is our response on the mailing list for the driver things?
I don't know. It's hit or miss. It depends on who's
Okay.
paying attention.
Yeah.
But you could get something started on the mailing list. Just put, in square brackets, Cinder, and then next to that in square brackets, drivers.
Okay.
And then that might help.
Okay. Yeah. So like, again, I've really only looked at the NetApp side, right? It's not NetApp that's creating the flex files, right? They sell you the device. It's on you to administrate it, right? And they even have, if you go look at their OpenStack docs, which say draft in huge letters across it, and they have their own little docs page that links to the Cinder docs, and their example is using their Python library, which is not what the Cinder driver uses. They have their own separate Python library, but they're just like, here's how you create your aggregate, here's how you create your flex vol, here's how you create this, run this Python. Now take this data, which they have a crappy little Python script that formats the output. Now take this data and go read the Cinder doc on how to provision or how to add this in, right? And so I'm like, they're already, the steps are already there, the Python's already there. Is there an interest in doing that? But that's only in their OpenStack page, which is hosted on GitHub. It's like netapp.github.io something, whatever it is. If you go look at their like official corporate docs on netapp.com, right? They're telling you how to provision this and configure this either through their web UI or through their whatever their tool is, right? And so, like I said, I was kind of interested. My interest is the automating the data center flow of building OpenStacks and stuff on top. So no matter what, I'm going to go implement that and do that using their example. What I was interested in asking is, we are using provider drivers for Neutron already to configure our bare metal switches. We are using iDRAC and Redfish through Ironic to configure bare metal servers. Would there be an interest in the Cinder side to add some of those operator-like actions? But I'm with you. I don't want to let an OpenStack admin just, go ham there, right? Like it's a, and that's why I don't have a proposal or anything for that, right? Because each of these vendors I'm sure if I go mess with Dell or Hitachi, they're going to have something as well. That it's like, this is how you, but it's not going to be that far off at the end of the day, because you're creating a place that you can create LUNs, right? Like at the end of the day, like, so would that make sense for Cinder to have some of those storage operator like APIs so that all that can be automated in a pattern? And
I'm not strongly opposed to it. It'd be nice to maybe see a spec or something that is moving towards one, but you'd have to be motivated to drive it, and you'd have to buy in from the storage vendors. Like I can't take that on. I don't think anybody at Red Hat can, but we had a spec we could actually evaluate.
100%, I would not ask you guys to do the implementation. That would be something that I would have like our folks implement, right? That's I would commit that. This is definitely not going to be something of like, hey, Cinder devs, please go implement this feature for us.
Yeah, yeah. The big things that I mean, I guess we would all look for slightly different technical things, but I would as a first pass, I would want to make sure that we're not violating any of our internal like programmatic rules for interfaces and what objects are supposed to be doing. We're not breaking our own rules internally, and that it doesn't creep the scope beyond what Cinder is intended to do. But it's hard to reason about it without seeing, like, the idea is interesting. It's intriguing, and I like that. It's interesting that Ironic and Neutron are able to do this, and so I think it's worth considering. But it's hard to envision exactly what that might look like without something that starts to move towards like a spec, like exactly how, what functions, what APIs would be introduced, and like where would they, like once I see like this is what we need to change and this is where we need to change it, then I can start to reason about what's the implication, what's the size of the scope of these changes, and what would this mean for Cinder as a project. You know, then it's a bit more easier to have a more defined conversation.
So,
which is all to say, like, yeah, if like NetApp is in support of this, you could maybe use them as a guinea pig and come up with some, like a draft or like a proposal, for instance, and then we can begin to discuss that based on merit and technical details.
So
I don't know what's the consensus of the group. Is what I'm saying resonating, or does someone fundamentally oppose?
Yeah, I think so. Not to waste more of Doug's time. Also, like if the first thing you can do is like ask the vendors on the mailing list if they are interested. We don't need like the approval of like all the vendors, but just to start with, like Anthony's here from Hitachi, then Janand was there from NetApp. Simon is very active from Pure side. If like few of the vendors could give a go no go on this, and we can start with the like specification using one backend as a reference, like maybe NetApp, as you have mostly worked on that, to provide these APIs, like provide the backend support, and then we can go on the implementation. So I mean, a step-by-step thing. But yeah, I'm not in oppose of this. Just we need more consensus from the wider set of people.
I would say, like, from Hitachi's perspective, I can't answer for like the PMs and stuff like that. But based on historical trends on different products and stuff, it wouldn't surprise me if they would want to implement something like this. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I could see a use case maybe even for Ceph or RBD, like if we wanted to enable certain cluster-wide or certain pool-wide features, being able to programmatically do that through like this kind of provider driver thing or something like that. Maybe even move a little bit closer to configuring replication. I don't know. I'm not sure if that is outside of the scope of Cinder though. Like, I can't. It's hard for me to reason about it, but I can see uses for it potentially.
And there is
do you guys know of any like virtual appliances for some of the other storage app vendors? Like, for example, NetApp has a virtual appliance that implements a NetApp. Comically, the appliance explicitly does not run on top of OpenStack virtualization. So that's a pain in the neck. It only wants to run on ESXi, and not even ESXi that's driven by OpenStack. Like literally check for some OpenStack string somewhere and say this is not a supported approach. And so, but if Anthony, if Hitachi has one, I would be like happy to run that and go through some of your API docs and whatnot and see how, or if this
So we don't have an actual appliance. I was kind of thinking about just provisioning operations, but we don't have an actual appliance, so it would just be like through a storage device or.
Okay. Yeah, so they've got one that runs all the ONTAP is their API. It runs all the ONTAP things, but it doesn't actually expose storage, right? Like it's just like you can say, please create me a flex vol as they call it. Please create me a LUN on top of that. And Cinder is able to talk to it. You can't mount anything because there's no actual storage there, but you can say, please make me a 70 billion petabyte LUN, and it's just like done. Right. It's just a API.
Yeah, understood. I honestly
Virtualization.
don't know if we have that. I honestly don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, but I'd probably have to do digging to find out.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even know what the math is set, but my intention was that I could at least then have a Cinder kind of poking at those so that it's the real deal.
So we have Walt here. I'm not sure if he's interested in the discussion, but he's managing, as an operator, he's managing all of these OpenStack deployments. Like, I was interested to know his take on, like, if he would benefit from such an interface to talk to, like, to management operations on the vendor side. I don't know if he's around anymore. Like, we have been talking for a long time.
Walt, are you there?
Anyway, I know I distracted you guys a whole bunch with this, and I didn't mean to.
We killed Walt. He's not responding. Oh no. I'm kidding.
Is it we that killed him, or was it Doug that killed him?
It is. It's been a big week.
Oh yeah, I'm ready to hop right back into bed.
Do you have
Yeah,
kids,
so
or
Doug-
are you in the States? Because you got activities that you're gonna have to do if you are before you can.
Yeah, I am in the States. No kids though, just the cats, and they're probably more demanding, to be honest.
I have two, and they'll be home starting at about 3:25. So yeah, my house will turn upside down starting right then.
Right now, so I'm West Coast, so it's about 10:30 here right now, PM or AM, and this is usually their kind of sleeping time. Like they sleep around 10, 11, noon, but they'll be up harassing me soon, I'm sure.
So I will make something on the mailing list and then kind of either write up I can just do it on my Rackspace, and I can share kind of a longer use case, and if there's interest, I can move that use case into Cinder docs. I'm actually doing that as we speak with
You mean the Etherpad?
say that again?
You mean the Etherpad with Cinder docs?
Oh, no. So during the during some of the PTG sessions when we were talking Neutron, there's a lot of the docs and the use case that everybody expects on Neutron is we're working in a virtual machine world and the software-defined network is dealing with virtual machines, but there's a bunch of vendor drivers that are dealing with hardware, dealing with the data center. There's random docs that allude to it, but there's not been one specific one. And so I've written a use case a while ago describing that's posted on my website. And I guess somebody linked to it from a Neutron doc, and they were just like, no, we cannot do that. And so now it's a patch to bring that into the Neutron docs to explain how does the provider side work. And so, like I said, I'm happy to do it however you guys want.
I mean, personally, I don't want you to waste it's too many efforts to like write this talk up if the vendors are not interested. I mean, the first thing always would be to just ask them if they're good for it. Then we can work on a spec maybe. Like the spec, generally we don't require a spec. I mean, we should require a spec in this case because we are modifying the interface of like Cinder to like have these new methods where we could perform these operations. So a spec would be good. And yeah, we can take it from there. Maybe you know about the Cinder meetings. Sure. It's every Wednesday at 1400 UTC. I think it started happening in the Cinder channel now.
Okay. Yeah, I can. That's easy. That's 9 a.m. here, so nice, easy night for me. But my that Neutron thing that I'm linking, I'm not writing a spec or anything because others have already written the spec and have done that. I'm just kind of just describing like from a provider undercloud standpoint, this is how all these pieces glue together, and referencing all the other specs and they
it's helpful to see that because it's what we would do except for storage.
So like I said, I want to be collaborative and not
oh sure,
not a pain in the ass.
No, but this is helpful to see. That's a very concrete example of how you do this for a network. So
yeah,
I think that's a kind of good thing. In fact, did you link it into the Etherpad for the PTG?
I can. It's in the Neutron.
Yeah, I know, but we don't.
Side.
We don't.
I know. I gotta. I haven't put it in your in the Cinder one,
right?
Because that's where this topic came up. Is that, and it's pretty altered from what I wrote originally because I had linked to like Arista and Cisco specific drivers and included some of their specific stuff in there, but they really don't want any vendor specific. They wanted me to make it as generic as possible. So I actually just asked Claude Code to take my markdown and convert it to RST and take out any vendor specific stuff. So that's all I did.
Yeah, I was looking at that tested by and I was wondering like how does this work? Like I mean this card, I mean you gave it enough information for it to be able to like expand upon it or
so I just pay for the $20 a month plan, and I just use the CLI for some stuff, but I'll use it to, like, I had my original doc was Markdown that I wrote, that is, like I said, vendor details and whatnot, and I wrote that with James Denton, who works with me, and he's one of the Neutron cores, and he wrote a good chunk of that. And so somebody, when they were talking about the provider and the thing, there was a session on that at Neutron. Somebody had proposed a patch linking from their docs to that article, and they had said we'd rather have this defined in our docs as a use case. So I said, oh, I can do that. And so I fired up Cloud Code CLI, my $20 thing. I went and grabbed the Markdown file out of GitHub, and I said, can you convert this from Markdown to restructured text using targeting the Neutron repo? I gave it the URL to the Neutron repo, so don't use anything different, and please remove all references to third-party drivers except for networking generic switch, which is their backend that is supposed to be generic for all vendor switches. That is kind of the reference design. And so it did, like, I'll say 90% of the lift, and then I just reread it and edited it from there. And so that's my cheat mode.
Yeah, I was curious to know about the specific part, like how much did Claude assist? So like with this new guidelines we have, like we can write assisted by, but we don't know like what was the purpose of the AI assistant? Like, did it write the test? Did it write the functionality of the code? Did it write the documentation? I mean, how much impact it had on the actual change? So that is like kind of
That's a very good point. We can look at adopting that change. What would you want to see?
No. So I'm not talking about any change here, but just wanted to know. I was curious to know that. I mean, it would be good to have this information somewhere, but I don't know any good way of like being able to tell in the commit message itself, like in being very brief about it, not being verbose, like these lines of this file are validated, not in that way. I mean, if we could have a way to tell how much of this like 30% part was done by the AI assistant. I mean, at least I would look the patches in a different way. Like if 90% of the done code is like part is done by AI, I would be skeptical about like reviewing. I mean, I would think like it is not properly tested, or like it was just, I mean, write a prompt and just push the patch to get it. Rather than like just the 10%, like as you said, like the docs were already there, the original information was already there. You just converted it from one format to another, like Markdown to honesty. So which is like very normal. I mean, I would assume like all the information here is like very authentic. So yeah.
So were you saying that Cinder isn't vibe coded?
Yeah, luckily Cinder was created at a point where vibe coding was nothing.
So I'll changing places. I'll put my TC hat on here. So that was one of the things that we had gone back and forth about, AI coding and whatnot, and where we ended up coming to and adopting the setup was that, and around the same time we did the signed off by change, because the Linux Foundation, we said that if you wrote any part of your change, you need to put assisted by and put what it is, because there could be licensing. And there is a thing that some of the folks are have concerns about. They have a valid concern in that all of the AIs out there do have a statement that says that code that is generated by this cannot be used to create a competitor to them, something to that effect. And so that is a problem with the license. And so what the TC ended up doing is kind of just hand waving through there. Like you said, what is written by it. And so if you read what it says is that code should not be, functional code should not be written by the AI. But test and documentation is okay. How much do people adhere to that? I can't say, but we didn't create any stipulation that says you must call that out. But I think that's a valid call out, that it makes it, it's a review. It's important for reviewers to be able to see that. So maybe we should revisit that and say you need to kind of call that out so that reviewers are more aware.
Is there a particular TC resolution or statement on this? Because the only one I saw was the foundation one. So if you could point me to that, that would be kind of helpful.
Oh, maybe this was in the foundation. It could be that it was a foundation thing, and we were asked to.
Okay, that's fine. I just
nod to it and say that we will adhere to this. Because you're right, I don't see a specific resolution for that. So I think that's what it was.
Okay.
We were trying to, at least from my side, I was trying for us to kind of stay a little more hands off, because I don't necessarily know how this will kind of evolve. I think the TC is good at providing overall technical standard, like for us to kind of, like, it's really up to a lot of the projects to kind of decide on. Yes, that's okay. Yes. So this is it. We didn't adopt a specific resolution. We had to nod to that. And so Julia drove this primarily, and she is one of the ironic cores, and I'm an ironic core. So that's where I communicated with her a lot through that. So I do think we need to have some specifics and some recommendations. I just was not ready to commit to what everybody, because some people were just like, we're going to outright state that we're banning any use of this, and then there were people on the side of like, let people do whatever they want. I'm trying to find, or at least for me, I want to figure out like what what is helpful. And Rajat's statement of like, we need a call out to kind of say, was it tests? Was it docs? Like, because
Yeah, it does say that here, that the contributor is supposed to like tell you stuff, but if they don't, you don't know, right? And then you don't know to review it. So my big concern is really just introducing some kind of non-Apache 2 licensed code that makes us liable to a patent troll or something. And then
so that's where Guthram is creating something that, and this has not been adopted, but that's I think I might have actually missed the session now that I realize what time it is for that. But as the TC moved their meeting to today, but generated by was going to be, like I said, that was going to say that functional code was there, and we were going to say that these licenses are not compatible with, like Apache 2 is not compatible with generated by kind of thing, because it's not Apache. It's not Apache. It's a GPL that's not, because you can't put any other undue restrictions on the thing, but Apache does not then say that you can't put other restrictions on the code, right?
Yeah, Apache 2 is pretty liberal.
Yeah, because that's the at least concern from the foundation legal is we're creating a license violation, right? And so that's what that's what we're discussing now, adopting, is that saying that code cannot be written by, because it's going to then violate licensed code. If you do write code, if you do accept licensed code by that, then you have another license limitation in addition to Apache 2 that you need to express in your project's license. Because now technically you have code that's written by something that says that it can't be compete with that, right? It's like that very legal technical but it's hard, because I think the black and white statements are wrong, but what's the right balance, right? And my argument is, at least TC wise, is I would like to see the community as a whole adopt things that makes it easier for maintainers, easier for contributors, easier for keeping the inertia of the project, right? Like it's one of those things that in the past I argued against some of like, we maintain our own OpenStack docs theme for Sphinx, which is broken in future versions of Sphinx, right? And so my question has been, what value does the theme provide to us? Well, everybody knows it's the OpenStack, but everybody that worked on that thing hasn't contributed to it in years. It's about to hit a cliff. Who's signing up to rewrite the thing into the next version? Nobody? Okay, great. Then what we need to do is select one of the themes that ships with Sphinx, and that's what we're going to have to migrate to, right? Because telling everybody, oh, we're going to pin ourselves on an older version of Sphinx doesn't seem like a process that makes it easy for us to continue to maintain the project, right? Like,
No, it's not a good long-term solution. That's
exactly. So that's at least my mentality, if that makes sense. Like, what, and at least what I argue, I'll say what I argue at work is this a value add for us? No, it's something that we need to do for continuing our business operations. Then great, it's open source, right? Like that's at least how I've argued it at Rackspace. So that's why all of a sudden we're contributing a whole lot more, is that I've had to beat people with that stick, right?
no, carrying a lot of patches is just, it just gets worse and worse.
So you had said you worked in that group. If I look at the OpenStack public cloud, which is the old version of OpenStack that customers could sign up for, the new version is called OpenStack Flex.
Oh,
But if I,
okay.
it's been rebooted, but it's at least it's following. Did you know Kevin Carter? Because he worked at Red Hat for a while.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so Kevin's come back to Rackspace and is leading the OpenStack effort there, and so Kevin and I work together a whole lot on, and we're like both pro like open source and do this out in the open. So most of our Flex deployment is as close to upstream and patches public as we can do. Like, you can do all that. But if I go look at the older OpenStack that most of the people that say they worked at Red Hat or at Rackspace before know, and I diff that against all the patches and everything against what, like, where that forked, the diff is almost, and this has been like, I've created a presentation about this. The diff is almost as big as the code base itself, right? And so that's what I used to, like, CEO and everybody to, like, argue that we have to change our approach on this. Like, it's all internal. Our 90% of this doesn't matter. It's all, like, it provides us no value add, but it's makes it that much harder for us to work going forward, right? And so that's been, when I could put it in, like, lines of code and then express it in number of developer and man hours that is necessary to do that, to persist this going forward, that made sense to them explaining it in dollars and cents. So
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem was that if you don't get the changes upstream, you don't get your unit tests upstream. And then people start screwing around and break all sorts of unrelated things for no good reason other than refactoring to make something look nicer, but you're completely hosed. And yeah, so that's why those patches get bigger and bigger, because they have to include all this stuff that's got nothing to do with the functionality. But I was one of the last developers on the first Rackspace cloud in Java.
Oh,
that's what, what, so I got hired mainly to close out that cloud and then moved
Slice
into
host. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was the old
okay,
code. Yeah, that's what Rackspace had gotten, and then it just sort of reached. They realized it was just not going to be expandable, so that's why they moved to doing OpenStack. So yeah, so it was that was interesting, because there was, so Jonathan Bryce was the slice host guy. So there was the J Bryce user in the database that had powers that I don't know how it worked, because you could be root in the database and you still couldn't do stuff the J Bryce user could use.
Nice.
And so the J Bryce password was passed around to us developers, like, because occasionally you'd have to go in there and do stuff, and that
Yeah.
was the only way you could do it. And there was a project just before I left that was, you know, to eliminate the J Bryce user completely from the database. And it was a big effort because it was just crazy. But yeah, that was fun. All right. Well,